All right, we're live. Yeah, I like how they give you that feature to. We should get the intro. Prude, have you talked to Penultimum about the
I
intro?
sent him a DM and then I sent YouTube support one, so we'll see how that goes because he
All
owns the
right.
rights to that music. I just don't know how that works for our end.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah. So we have a very good stream. Let's just go over to.
Did
We
you
have a very good stream.
Did you want to do the Oren McIntyre intro? That we have a great stream with a great guest that you're really going to love. I think that's just become that's like the lorem ipsum of all live stream introductions. I think Oren has set a typecast standard.
The platonic form of the opener.
There you go. Yeah.
There's an idea of a live stream introduction, an abstraction.
Are we ready for some more geotrauma? There was actually whole art exhibitions and whole books in Urbanomic and Zero books written about geotrauma. But anyways, maybe we'll talk about that another stream. But we have amazing guest. Gio, have you saw the Ralph chair debacle? Yes, I have. But let's not talk about e-drama wrestling with Vermo.
This might be the only show where we don't talk about e-dramas. This is like this is the best day for me ever.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll save it for next week. So on Prude's channel, of course. We have an amazing guest with us, Benjamin Boyce.
Yeah,
I'm sure everyone knows who you are who listens to us because both me and Prude have been in your show, but also you are a very popular host and content producer, take seller. I don't know what you call yourself, but I know a lot of people know who you are. So but give us like the quick CV.
Oh,
yeah. Give us like the quick CV, what you do. What's your favorite color? How long have you been an alcoholic?
Yeah, no, that is an issue. I'm working that out with the wife. But I just at this point, I think of myself as kind of an internet anthropologist in the vein of Kathrine Dee. Kathrine?
Yeah.
Kathrine?
Kathrine.
So I just interview people that I find interesting, and there's various different topics and stuff. I got my start when the Evergreen State College blew up in 2017, which some people might know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just a guy. That's all I am. Not a thought leader at all.
Yeah. Way to oversell yourself. What a wrestling promo that
I don't know.
Don't worry about it. But yeah, Benjamin Boyce, we're very glad to have you on. Good friend of ours, good friend of the show. Yes. And this whole stream is about the historic re-election of it, even if you don't like him, it literally is a historic. The last president to have what do they call that? Non-sequitus?
Non-consecutive terms.
Non-sequitus.
Non-consecutive. It was good. Grover Cleveland.
That should be the description for this show. Every time that we go on a topic, it's non-sequitus conversation.
No, it's very millennial ADHD up in this house.
Yeah. There is this thread on millennials today. Oh God.
Really?
Non-contiguous, I guess another one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's on YouTube. What are you talking about? It's on YouTube.
You're having a good time here, Gio, aren't you?
He is. He's fielding thousands of questions from a variety of interlopers.
No, so anyways, yeah, we're talking about the historic president, future presidency of Donald J. Trump, his re-election, and what it really means. So we'll get into it.
What does it mean?
I guess
that's a good question, because actually, I think it's a good place to start with the generations thing. Because
all right, go ahead, Prue.
I had made this observation because a lot of the exit polling data's come out, and they said that Gen X really had come out in droves for Trump, and then. But I think Kamala Harris's campaign, and Ben, I'd love to hear your take on this because I think that you're more out there in terms of talking to people and from all sides of things. And I've noticed that Kamala Harris's campaign was very millennial coded, very millennial female coded, to where you could see how she wouldn't. people, the racial question was interesting because they're like, well, she's not really a black woman, but she's trying to appeal to black voters, which we're going to vote for her anyway, and they certainly did by the polling data. But she'll come out with these records and be like, oh, I love this, I love Miles Davis or something like that, and she's presenting herself in a way that a very upper middle class, affluent white female liberal would present herself, talking about diversity and these sorts of issues. And the way that she carried herself was very much in this white late 30s, early 40s sort of millennial coded way. Whereas, the strategy, I think, for the Trump campaign was towards Gen X, towards male dominated media spaces. The podcast scene, I thought, was very much towards that kind of thing. And
MMA, pro wrestling, yeah.
All of it was there. And it was all very male coded, very Gen X.
He got a lot with the white women vote too.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Well, he did well with white women for the last 2 election cycles that he ran, which is why they became the subject of. I think it was very famous when he won in 2016. I think it said like 53% of white women had voted for him in 2016, which they had made that percentage sort of like the enemy on a lot of left-leaning Twitter.
I love that they do that. It's so great. It's so wonderful of them. Like, white women are the enemy now. Now Latinos are the enemy. We need to deport them. Did you see those? I don't know how real it is, but they're like, we need to deport. I'm going around calling all my illegal Latinos parents, going to stick them on ice because they didn't vote my direction.
Multiracial white supremacy since the Zimmerman days.
It's a thing. A thing.
Yeah. But I guess the polling demographic is a good place to start. I mean, I think white women voted for Trump for a variety of reasons because he did appeal to their security. He did appeal to their basic economic security. And the sort of there were some people, there was this one guy on Twitter that had it correctly. Whereas me, I thought the way I was of the opinion of people like James Kirkpatrick that I really overplayed that one medical procedure's influence on the election, and I underplayed. What did I underplay? I overplayed that, but I underplayed the Palestine issue to people that are on the far left, people that subsequently basically just stayed home because Kamala being a part of Joe's cabinet and so forth. But when it came right down to it, Trump did a pretty decent job of distancing himself from a lot of the more, let's face it, the pro-life movement did kind of try to stab him in the back, at least the official organizers. He did a good job of sort of distancing himself from the really, in a way that isn't kind of like conservatives here in Canada, where Stephen Harper completely destroyed social conservatism. Whereas Trump, he sort of just downplayed the excesses of it. And it did manage to get white women. And now that white women are sort of like the object of scorn, I guess the ability of that one thing to steer the election was massively overplayed by both the media and by both our circles. I thought if Trump were to lose, it would be because of that issue. But as we know, his sort of maneuvering actually did pay off. But what do you guys think? Like, what do you think white women did vote for Trump? Apart from just being an identity issue, of course. But yeah,
it's the latent Handmaid's Tale rape fantasy. I think it's just driving so much erotic.
We'll try to avoid that word, but
sorry.
Don't worry about it.
Walking on eggshells.
Grape.
Okay.
Yeah.
Grape.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm being facetious, but I think you're right about security. Predictability. So there is something in the American imagination. Has Canada have a female premier yet? I know.
Yeah, but only technically, because Kim Campbell was only there for a few months, and she was sort of like a stopgap, and she wasn't elected. She was kind of like it was kind of like a Gerald Ford deal. Yeah.
So we've had no female leaders. So that is unpredictable. We don't know how our government and our nation follows or is led by a figurehead, albeit of a female. So that anything that's unpredictable, I think, is going to lose you points with females. Even if they identify as this, it'll be predictable because she's me. But then there's this whole question that I brought up earlier on Twitter about female intrasexual competition, which is like this unspoken current within female politics. And so they want representation, but at the same time, there's a lot of difficulty following the leader and unsureness of the leadership of a female. I'm spitballing here, but I know that Europe has had some female leaders, but Europe is kind of lockstep with itself. They don't have like a grand emperor like America does, just on the economic scope of what our country does and the power, the worldwide power that Europe, as opposed to America, any given country within Europe has, as opposed to America. And then you could probably complicate things by saying that the EU might have had, I don't know if they have a premier or a champion or something like that, but whoever that...
The EU has a president, and if I recall correctly, it is a woman, Ursula von der Leyen. She's the president of the European Commission.
Yeah. Which doesn't have nearly the significance optically as an American president. Am I correct? I never hear about those. So I think that is a lot of questions, and I don't think you have major players being major world dominating empires being led by females. So you don't know what you're getting into if you put that into motion. I don't think many people would think that directly. I'm just spitballing.
Well, I think most of that sort of intrasexual competition has happened more so, I think, just between pundits and the sort of commentariat class than there has been things that we're going to notice on the scene. Because, I mean, for this election, at least, there was no sort of catfight, for lack of a better term, like on the primary stage, like we saw in 2020 when it was Kamala Harris getting eviscerated by Tulsi Gabbard on, from the left on a variety of issues. Whereas for this election, and really since the whole Trump era, it's been, a lot of fighting between these sort of proxies and avatars for the respective camps. I mean, you can go to Chaya Ratchik, the woman who runs the Libs of TikTok account and all the stuff that she does, constantly getting in these intrasexual back and forths with Taylor Lorenz, because they're both older, established, closer to middle-aged women, or they're the same person. That's my favorite conspiracy theory, right? Is that, so Taylor Lorenz is Chaya Ratchik, and it's Dr. Jekyll and Dr. Ratchik and Mrs. Lorenz. But I mean, that stuff played out a lot. But I think really for this one, it just came down to what are the issues that matter more. And I think that security and just making ends meet. I mean, groceries. I mean, the debate. This was an election really on three. I mean, not to say it's the economy, stupid, like it was with Bill Clinton, but it was the economy. It was about immigration, and it was about the fact that no one is safe. And you can feign as much, and we can joke as much as we like about this sort of female or liberal instinct about wanting to, release prisoners as soon as they're terrible, and then we wonder why the streets are bad. But I mean, when you look at particularly married white women, they're going to be right there by their husband's side when it comes to the issues that matter, and they came out in droves for them. And I don't think that should be discounted.
I wanted to ask you guys about that, because it seems that, I mean, I don't know, we could probably interview a woman who voted for Trump. We probably know some people, Prude, but
I know plenty.
And none of them are denying you sex.
No, but that's what I mean. That's what I wanted to talk about, because there was this conscious effort to play into like the narrative that middle America, flyover America is like filled with with micro Gileads in every single working class household, where the husband is tyrannizing their daughters and their wives to vote for Trump. And in the polling, the coding of it by the Democrat attack ads of like, when you're in your, when you're voting and you're in the booth, it's like, a privacy, and, you can vote the way you want, meaning like vote for Kamala Harris, right? Yeah. So I think they really sort of discounted, like they really underplayed they tried to create a narrative that was basically a gender war issue between husband and wife, but households largely vote together regardless. I know very few people that vote like the wife votes one way, the husband votes the other. It tends to be that if you're in a specific profession, you tend to marry within that profession. And if you are of a political persuasion, you tend to marry in that way. So I think that them trying to do this wedge issue to divide people between gender, that really didn't work out. I mean, unless I could be wrong. I could be like, every single guy that is like a, MAGA chud is like threatening their wives or whatever. But like, that's just a fantasy, really.
Well, I think on a symbolic level, it's very, very dangerous for them, because one of the key issues from the Democrat states is their willingness to drive a wedge between children and parents along the gender identity ideology lines. And so if they're trying to insert themselves into the connection between a husband and a wife, that just reinforces that these people want their hands, that they're really trying to pry the family apart. And then if you look at those really cringe ads that I'm sure weren't directly related to Kamala, or the Democrats, but they were definitely for her. You had a guy masturbating to porn, and then then the senator coming in and saying, the Republicans are going to take away your porn, or like the Republicans are going to take away your right to birth control. There was another ad with a man and a woman having casual sex.
There was a literal cream pie.
Yeah. And then the last one was that there was this ectopic pregnancy, and the 911 said, we're not going to be able to do that. But they're all trying to project that the GOP is the one between you and your spouse, or you and your connection to others. But it's actually the liberals, the liberal porn mongers, the liberal, we're going to help you not take responsibility for the consequences of sexuality, because sexuality doesn't actually mean anything. There's no meaning here. So it's really hard on a symbolic level, on a civilizational level, for them to actually have a meaningful, impactful, resonant message to people who are trying to live their lives, build their families, and actually use sex and abstain from hedonism in order to build a family and have a good life. And so they're spinning their wheels on a symbolic level.
Yeah, no, I think that you've got a great point on that, because so much of the electoral ads that I saw come my way, whether it be on the TV or just scrolling
Do not come.
Yeah, right. That was more or less the online ads were much more targeted on the sexual stuff, whereas the ones that I saw, and I live in a red state. I live in a very kind of like quasi-rural area. I'm not too far from a major metropolitan area, but I'm out there. And all the Kamala Harris ads that I saw were primarily focused on the economy. That it was the usual stand up for the little guy. Donald Trump wants to give billionaires more and more money and that sort of thing, which I guess on the economic fairness issue, I feel like, I guess that maybe resonates more where I'm at, where people I think are much more just like in their gut, more conservative. But the online stuff was just wild because and again, it goes back to that millennial coded aspect between the pink pussy hats in 2016 to the overturning of Roe. That for the millennial coding, I think, comes in mind here. Well, what's their issue? Well, it's this sacramental sacrifice of the unborn, and that must be preserved at all costs. And the Lena Dunham girl style lifestyle must be preserved at all costs. Like my right to be used like just a whole must be preserved at all costs. And whereas I think most of America, at least for what we saw out of the results, was just like, I think that there are more important things, like they're eating cats in Springfield, Ohio, to a point where even
they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs,
or even and they're Tim killing Walton, the squirrels and they're killing the
squirrels and they're killing the raccoons, and even Tim Walz's home county voted for Trump overwhelmingly, and so I think it really just came down to messaging for a specific part of the electorate whose minds were focused on much bigger issues.
What's your guys' reaction to the results, like over the last few days? Like, how have you felt?
Well,
like the American
that I've bought myself 4 more years to, get my money, my house, and my affairs in order, because I don't know what comes after this. If I had known what was going to happen in 2020, And I mean, I get it. It's the joke for me. I'm not yet 30, and so for me, the joke is always like, "Wow, I wish I bought a house in 2006 when I was like, 12 years old or whatever, and not, and not being in school." But for me, it's like, well, I'm an adult. I'm a productive member of society. I'm a net taxpayer. I might as well do everything that I can to get myself in the best position possible, because I don't know what comes after Trump, and I don't know what comes in the next 4 years, but I know that Trump being in office delays some of the worst aspects of the left, that I can at least be prepared for when that crap hits the fan. So, but to just see the results was, I think, a confirmation of a lot of the, maybe the more, a lot of Scott Greer's takes, I will say, have definitely been vindicated from the last several years. To see the Rio Grande Valley and to see the Hispanic vote in Texas go as far rightward as it has, that does shed some interesting messaging for electoral politics. It tells me that George W. Bush can take a hike, because decades of messaging on amnesty doesn't work well to pander, whereas promising deportations will. But it's really my only take is that Trump getting elected has bought me 4 more years and maybe the possibility that things get better, but I'm not holding out hope.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. I didn't have like a very great feeling that all of that day. I thought that, how should I say this for YouTube? I thought that maybe like some fortifications were going to take place, but I think that overall the degree to which he won calls into question a lot of things. But I mean, I feel pretty good. I mean, I did that one long post congratulating America and all of my American friends, but in it I said that the work now has to be done. Trump does have to pick good people. The fact that I think he's distancing himself from his son-in-law Jared Kushner is a massive step in the right direction. He just needs to find the right people that aren't necessarily in the GOP machine. And I think that a lot of people going in to the election that were pro-Trump, they did sort of figure like, okay, like now all of my favorite influencers are going to have a cabinet position. And that's not probably going to work out, but certainly for some of them, I mean, it is, there is a pool of talent there. There is, for lack of a better term, there is sort of like a rival elite that has been allowed to be cultivated that is pro-Trump. Whether you want to trust these people 100% is another issue. I still remain skeptical of people like Elon Musk and other various podcasters and influencers. But at the same time, I mean, our friend King Pill talks about the PayPal mafia and how there has been, and so there is like, in some ways, there is more of a depth than there was in 2016, obviously. And so hopefully now that Trump knows that it's basically just 4 years, he's going to really push for things that he can do, because he doesn't have to campaign at the end of it. It's up. Like, unless you want to like rewrite the Constitution. Like, I think that only happened like once.
Well, there was this lovely article, I think, from I think Sky News or the Telegraph, where it's like, well, under a certain weird reading of the Constitution, he could run again in 2028. I mean, he'd be too old to do it, but I think that's a hilarious thought to have in mind, just to torment the minds of liberals everywhere. But I think that he's got, like you said, he's not running again. He can set up his legacy like he's talked about in the campaign trail, and he can go scorched earth if he wants to, but that's up to him.
Well, I'll give you a recent example. I mean, Benjamin, you're a Gen Xer, but like, we're millennials. We all remember that it was around 2012. That's when Obama like really, quote unquote, cemented his legacy by carrying out an absolutely brutal and vicious culture war that led to subsequent political victories all at once for Obama. And I think Trump will eventually, within the next 2 years, hopefully goes scorched earth this time. But from my perspective, it really does cement, from what I've seen online. Now, I could just be in a bubble, but even people that I know in real life, from my perspective, the defeat of Justin Trudeau, if there is an election next year, is almost inevitable. Thank God. So that's, and I know that liberals in Canada are trying to say that, well, it's going to help Trudeau because it will be like now the evil dictator fascist Trump is in office, that by comparison, they'll like take PP and like they already do it now. It doesn't really matter. So I think in terms of North American politics as a whole, if Trump is allowed to shift the political landscape and he's allowed to fulfill a lot of his populist policies, he already has in terms of I know a lot of people, like, as much as I have my criticisms of Trump's first term, I think on a spiritual level, politics has already been irrecoverably changed in North America. The style of politics, the aesthetic of politics, stuff that a lot of my book covers, actually. So I think, obviously it's a positive thing. I hope Trump, his feet are held to the fire in terms of promising at least half of what he delivers. Do I expect, like, tens of millions and upon millions of people to be deported? Probably not. But at the same time, I mean, if he can create a system in which illegal immigration is effectively stopped or effectively stymied, that's brilliant. I just think that multiple generation immigrants aren't going to be deported. And but yeah, I mean, you have to be pragmatic about these things. And ultimately, Trump, like Prude was saying, does buy people in America. And maybe one day, like, I'm seriously considering moving to America. So if, Trump has 4 more years to do what he wants to do, then it's good. And I think after a while, when it comes to scaring liberals with their fantasies about Trump, that goes so far. But in terms of actual work, that's another story. So,
well, the Trump is Hitler rhetoric, I think, was put a kibosh to by Biden. Biden's concession speech, even though it wasn't a concession speech, but like a consolation speech or whatever, because he wasn't running, but he was surreally articulate and joyful. And there was an honest sense of relief, and they turned on a dime. I mean, he turned on a dime about it seemed like genuine reconciliation. They're going to drop the Hitler rhetoric. They're going to hand over, and it's going to be seamless. They're going to hand over the power. They're not going to fight him. To what degree that trickles down into the Democratic or liberal base, I don't know. But I don't think that I don't think that the machine has the political will to make him enemy number one. For whatever reason, that was all they had left, and so that's what they threw at him. And I think most people, and I think that the election and the degree to which he won really shows the smartest people on that side to just back off and figure out a way to go along. All the pundit class, they're losing subs, they're losing subscribers, they're losing view counts. They have to change somehow. Now, how they change to be a loyal opposition or a disloyal opposition, I don't know. I don't know what they have to stand on. I don't know where the energy is going to come from that side. But we know that I think wokeness is it's just losing credibility. It's not working anymore. So they're going to have to find another kind of momentum for that. And maybe even another enemy. And that enemy could be sorry to use this term, the woke right. It could be your corner of the internet. It could be that some of the ideas, and this is the opportunity, this is the window for frame setting, whatever happens in the next month to 6 months is going to set the frame of political discourse for quite some time. And this is a great opportunity for some of the ideas that you guys have been fostering, or people in your network have been fostering, to kind of make it up the branches, right? And kind of set up and start to move. And I don't know what those theories might be, or that style or that aesthetic might be, but the left is going to need to find a new thing to attack and a new way to attack. And so I don't know what's going to go forward, but it's really interesting times.
I think you're right. There's going to be a lot of sort of, who do we decide to throw our punches to in the next 70 days or so? Because I noticed that I think it was today on MSNBC, I think that Joy Reid had said something along the lines of that we need to double down on the progressive, woke identity politics.
It wasn't Joy Reid, but it was another just totally asinine woman of a certain persuasion. It doesn't really matter, or physical makeup doesn't really matter, but she was definitely fulfilling the Naomi Lowe role.
So okay, well, that's my bad for assuming that that they
don't all look the same. I know they all look the same, but they're different.
Joy Reid did call DeSantis's Florida an Austrian painter.
Oh yeah, she did. On election night, she did say that Florida is now a fascist state, or no, a fascist super state is what she had said. But no, I mean there was some black.
Well, the Panthers
did
win the Stanley Cup last season, so
anything's possible. Anything's possible. But I don't think DeSantis is ready to put on an armband and start telling us how to do things in Florida. But I don't think that the retired Jewish community in the real estate market would like that. But I think that the next 70 days, as Ben was saying, is going to probably play out a big part on the left of where the energy is going to go. I think that we kind of watched everyone sort of. I've caught up on all of the coping and seething and dilating that there can be of like Vaush and Destiny and all these sort of like mainstream progressive.
Where are the young men? Where are the young men of the leftist persuasion going to go? I mean, the only place that they have to go is to go towards the classical liberal. Like that's the only place to go, and then they need a harder right to
like
dialectic.
Bernie Bros,
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's the thing is that when you saw in 2020 when Bernie had given up on the primary, and also in 2016 that or not given up. I mean, really, for all intents and purposes, kind of like forced out, especially in 16. But you saw the Chapo Trap House guys they had transitioned away from, okay, he's not going to be our guy, Bernie's not going to be president, and they started talking to their audience with this degree of authenticity. And Dave Green, the distributist, has this great essay about Chapo Trap House, and I think what he called the grill pill or whatever. It's a great essay. Recommend people listen to it and read it. But the issue is that where's the authenticity here on the left? That's a big question I think that they have to ask themselves, because so much of this is performative. It's not even performative. To a large degree, I do think that they just genuinely believe in some kind of vitriolic race hatred, and that's really all that they've got going for them. And that was repudiated at the ballot box. I'm not really a big democracy fan, and the audience knows this, but I think that you can say wholeheartedly, along all the demographic breakdowns of how left and right are in this country, you lost, and the question becomes, what do you do? But I don't know how capable the left is of any meaningful introspection.
Yeah, I don't think that the so-called PayPal mafia are going to have an outsized effect rhetorically, aesthetically, and substantively or intellectually with the direction of the future. But they will be the ones who give shelter and platform to those ideas. And I think I have a feeling that there are cracks in the narrative, and something has to fill that crack. And it's going to be the discourse that you guys have been tracking and participating in. But I think but I think only certain ideas are going to filter up. Like when I spoke to Aaron about the what happened to the IDW set and the James Lindsay's woke right thing, and talking to Daryl Cooper, like there's a lot of like Nazi-ish, racist, kind of sexist tropes that are kind of funny and fun, and they have like a lot of irony in them that's provided cover for the dissident right or the Dark Enlightenment and allowed those ideas to kind of foment, but a lot of that stuff can't scale. It can't scale at all. The ideas are what, the actual ideas are what's going to matter. And so whoever can break out of like the coded kind of we are the dissident kind of thing and actually bring to the mainstream some of these really brilliant ideas, really realistic ideas about political formation and self-actualization within community are whoever can transport those ideas is going to make out pretty big. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's let's use the term Austrian painter regime. Just I get paranoid for you
APG,
but Austrian painter instead of the N word. But anyway, oh God, not the one you're thinking about.
However, Ben, I think that your point though about sort of the irony or the edginess that sort of plays cover for a lot of that. I mean, even this gets discussed, and I'm not leaking anything, but this is a general point that you can feel across any group chat that you're in on the right, is that a lot of the sort of irony poisoning of these areas that kind of covers for the edginess or whatever. Because I mean, it can be funny when someone wants to just say something, just completely, jumping the shark kind of deal. But, it's the ideas that need to carry on. But of course, the left is going to point to every joke that's ever been made to cover for it. So, I mean, the clean and optical people, of course, are gonna rise to the top. I mean, you go through Orrin McIntyre's tweet history. I think the one or few times he's ever swore is when he called Mark Hamill acting bitchy. And it's one of the few times I've ever seen him curse like on the timeline. And clearly that makes him palatable to people that either want to hire him or give him money. And I mean, clearly he's done well for himself. He's the model for that kind of upward success. And he can still, in ways that aren't as direct to the point, question everything from why does America have to have this undying love for a certain country in the Middle East? He's gotten into fights with Seth Dillon and the rest of that type over there. All the way.
He's got a particular gift of keeping himself clean and yet punch.
No, you mean
not
Oren?
pulling punches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Oren can only go so Oren goes pretty damn far without
and that's the point I'm trying to make is that like whoever wants to take our little sector of ideas and push them further, it's going to have to be sold that way. Yeah. And the side effect, and this is what happened when Elon bought Twitter and started unbanning a lot of people, was there was this concern that like the bans on Twitter, and this I'm going to get a lot of shit for this, but I think that there's some truth to it. Every ban wave, everything that came around created these selection pressures. It was very high pressure evolutionary environment where if you got banned for something, we now knew, okay, maybe that rhetorical vector will get me banned. How do I get the same far right idea and then circumvent that barrier? And that's how you got quite, the sort of ecosystem we have today with certain posters and personalities on Twitter. Am I a fan of the fact that that's been the way that it is? No, not really, because I think that all of these things should be discussed, all of these ideas, all of these people. But
even if I disagree with certain personalities that have been relegated to Telegram and BitChute and wherever.
Yeah, exactly. I would like them to come back. I'm not saying that they should be banned forever. I would like to see Jared Taylor come back to Twitter. I've said that before. But the point
all the TRS guys came back. I think only
I know
Sven got
all the TRS guys
banned.
come back, but not like Jared Taylor. But still, it's a tragedy. But the point being is,
I think Sven only got banned because he did death threats or something. Anyways,
then clearly, to some extent, that's definitely going to violate TOS. So, but my point stance is that this pressure environment is more or less gone, and now you kind of have to deal with someone makes a cogent point about immigration, and now it's like, well, he now gets lumped in with anyone else that wants to do obviously act in bad faith or just to be edgy.
Yeah, no, I think
I will say though. Oh yeah, go ahead, Benjamin. Then I'll have
no. Continue.
No, I was just gonna say like. How should I say this delicately? I understand from our position.
You freaking Canuck. You're so polite. Jeez
Louise. But because I think like we have to really be conscious of the people that are under us or came before us.
Well, yeah.
And I think from our position, I mean, two of us here use our real names and faces. One of us uses a pseudonym in his real face. I think from the position of being face lords, we have to really give respect and due to various anons that have created these bodies of ideas. That then, I mean, I know the threat of face people co-opting these ideas and grifting off of them and being take sellers. That's definitely real. I mean, we're all take sellers, but like, I think that I understand their very legitimate concerns of that, to be very skeptical of people that do use their real name and faces, such as ourselves. Now, I did it for a variety of reasons because I'm not really funded by anybody. I did this as a life pursuit, and I accept the consequences, whatever they may be. But the point being is that there are a lot of people that are anonymous who have created these ideas and who give an immense vitality. There's a lot of Zoomers right now with anime profile pictures that they say a lot of very shocking and bombastic things, but the brilliance of a lot of them is incredible, right? And so I think that, there will eventually have to be an equilibrium within the ecosystem of people that can more quote unquote mainstream these ideas, and people that do have that body of radicalism, that body of intellectualism even underneath the surface, who not necessarily could be pseudonymous or legitimately self-doxed. So yeah, and I understand like the real concerns that they have, and even those selection pressures of banning people. Now, I wish they wouldn't have gotten banned unless they were doing very legitimately heinous things, and people that have gotten banned have done legitimately heinous things. But I think that from their perspective, they would say that the original alt-right was maybe not largely, but pretty bigly responsible for the energy of Trump 1.1. Now, a lot of people in the alt-right have turned their back on Trump. But I think that a lot of old heads, such as Douglas Mackey, who have stayed the course, a lot of people like posters that we know, Prude, from 2016 onwards. Like, Nightmare Vision was there in 2016. I think that a lot of these people that stayed the course through thick and thin, now they sort of, it feels different than 2016 for a few reasons that you people have brought up. One is that,
go ahead.
No, I was going really quickly. One, that there is sort of like a rival elite that has been propping up people with power and influence, but yet are sympathetic to Trump. Two, in terms of platforms, I mean, there was no Rumble back in the day. Twitter was not the walled garden of infinite content, from video to small video to images to articles, that it was now. And I think that the media control has, by and large, really affected Trump winning this year as opposed to 2016, because 2016 created a huge backlash of Antifa and leftist activism. Now, I don't discredit the possibility of that coming back, but I think the withering of the storm is a lot more bearable nowadays than it was in 2016. Like YouTube, for instance, banned so many people, just Library of Alexandria of content gone like tears in the rain. But nowadays, you could go to Rumble, you could go to Kick, you could even go to Twitter. We're streaming on Twitter right now. So anyways, go ahead, guys. Go ahead. Yeah. Lastly, I will bring up the point before I forget. There is cause for concern if other elites are comfortable with Trump being in there. Will they try to do some funny business if they are being conciliatory? Is that a sign of them not revealing their hand? That's something you have to worry about. So yeah, go ahead.
So there's a lot, I think, that needs to be addressed there, and I think that a lot of it's very accurate. Anyone who shows their face on there, myself included, who decided to just own up to the fact that someone can dox me, but I'd rather just show myself as it is. I pay a huge amount of deference to those who are anonymous. Like I know my place in this sort of like online ecosystem hierarchy. I just know that that's the case. There are plenty of intellectuals that do this for the fun of it, for the passion of it, that one day that their ideas will be put out there or that they want their credit given to them. Countless people that try their very best on burner phones or all sorts of stuff to stay hidden, and I respect that for them, whether they're on Substack, on Twitter, or on certain forums that I like to peruse. And it just illustrates that that's part of it, and that ecosystem is going to always be there, and that's its own little world in and of itself. And if we've witnessed out of this election, I mean, one poster, I mean along him and several others, but him in particular, I mean, like Martin kind of managed to ramrod the whole Springfield, Ohio thing, and totally had changed the discourse environment from brat and abortion to immigration, and that there are 20,000 Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, and they are acting literally like, what they are in Haiti. And so it's just, okay, that's a huge deal. And that environment would not exist, and this election probably would not be the way that it was if not for Musk and the rest of them. I think that what's going to come out of this in the next 74 days prior to him being inaugurated is going to be the same fight we saw in the 1980s between this sort of emerging, what they called themselves the New Right back in the 1980s, versus sort of the neoconservative establishment of the time. You're going to see the same thing play out here between those that have read, J.D. Vance follows a lot of the people on the scene. There's going to be some influence of that in there, but it's also going to be against a lot of older, more establishment types that would like to steer the course away from things. We know what happened 40 years ago, which was a significant degree of co-opting or silencing and kicking them out, whether that be, Sam Francis and the rest of them in the 80s, Bob Whitaker and all of them, who, for all of the alt-right 1.0 stuff, they owe so much to Bob Whitaker, and I don't see not too many people acknowledging him. But on top of that, that fight's going to play out in the next 6 months. It's not going to be pretty. And the ecosystem will radically change because of it. And there will be plenty of targets that will be pointed rightward, as they always do on all issues. And I think because that's just how
I personally hope the Lincoln Project gets destroyed. But
I'd love to see Rick Wilson get in trouble. But as for the why, I think that the target always swings rightward when there's a rightward victory. The knives always come out because people want jobs. And people want to have positions of influence and power. It becomes palace intrigue. And you kick out the guy that you can paint towards the media and say, look at this, racist, misogynist, fascist, whatever, All of it's going to be put out there for people to play out and to see. I think that in this current media environment, that might not be as big of a blow as it has been, because as we've just witnessed with this election, and we witnessed in 2020 and 2016, Trump got called the fascist every day of the week. And they even just said, 2-3 weeks ago that an article in the Atlantic or the New York Magazine's Intelligencer that, Trump is beginning to sound a lot like a certain Austrian painter. And
it's beginning to sound a lot like
him. Yeah, anyways.
He's starting to sound like Egon Schiele?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, can that stick as much? Probably not. But also the question becomes donors and people who with names and job titles that I don't have access to, that I may not even know about. But I know that history tells me that there's going to be a big fight inside in these right-wing camps, and the left is going to have to figure out what they want to do. I mean, and the thing is that I think that they're going to screw up again, because no one learned the lesson from Michael Moore when he was asking why did Trump win, and he gave this great talk as to why he did. And it told them to, and he said, workers got mad.
Those people have one thing left: voting, a giant middle finger.
And that was it. And so I think that the left will probably not heed that mistake. Why? Because the left's coalition is primarily non-white, and that they have sort of a system in place, whether it be DEI, because that's still enshrined into law, and they still control significant swaths of power in this country, whether that's academia, whether that's Hollywood, virtually every other social media company, and all other parts of tech. Like, it's still there. The battlefield, I don't think the lines are being redrawn, but they're still pretty much there.
Well, so I think that any sort of radicalism that isn't good friends with prosperity is just not going to last. And the radicalism on the left that we've seen, especially over the last 10 years, and you can go back to, after one of those Russian revolutions, they can only spend other prosperities. They can only maintain power as long as there's enough prosperity to prop them up. I don't know to what degree any sort of right wing or hard right wing or whatever those batch of ideas are that are necessary for prosperity or are necessary to either achieve or to maintain prosperity. And I don't even think you need to focus on them. And I think this is why Trump is a great leader, because he's focusing everybody on just getting what's yours and just getting ahead, taking care of basics, enjoying life as it is. And the more or less radical ideas about racial differences, they don't really matter if everybody's getting along. It doesn't really matter if everybody kind of self-selects into various. I don't think it necessarily matters if everybody's self-selecting into opportunities that provide for them. Now, the welfare state and all that stuff aside, I think that if you focus, and I think this has just been the way American politics has worked, insofar as it has worked, it's front and centering the economy, front and centering jobs, making the American unified identity as somehow getting ahead, working hard, and something like that. And that's what people plug into. So I don't know to what degree any of the hard right or alt right or dissonant right ideas are going to be necessary to get the job done, which is to make society prosperous enough for people to self-select into the ideas or any given radicalism or soft radicalism that they want.
Mm. And I think on that issue, it might just be that immigration will be the biggest one, because, I mean, the poll, I mean, you can read into polls all you want, but I mean, even throughout the campaign, I mean, mass deportations of illegal immigrants was, overwhelmingly on almost virtually every ethnic group, and even a large portion of Democrats were all for that. So, I mean, there's something to that there.
Do you think that there's political widespread?
I think there's a political reason to say that if you came into this country illegally, you need to get kicked out, and that needs to happen. But I think that and I think to some extent you can say that a lot of this may be just academic interests, and it's going to come down to, can you produce results? I think that that's definitely going to happen. Does that mean that the fine folks at Aporia magazine are going to stop talking about HBD? No, like, it's Bo Weingart not going to No, he's not. Why? Because he's an academic, and he's not going to get in a position of power to really change anything. But his ideas are still going to influence people of power and of means. And it's not like these unspoken truths aren't going to go away anytime soon. I think that what happens next is going to be not just I think that the ideas people I don't want to say that they've had their time in the sun, because they're not, but the people who are influenced by those ideas are going to need to be able to quickly get into power, to quickly show up and produce results if they can prove that they can, or that they get selected to do so. I mean, a lot of my political work that's not online has been using my day job, which is development, and I'll leave it bland so I don't dox myself. But, I work in government, I can say that much. And, using what I know to navigate the bureaucracy, so people I know with jobs who are friendly or that I identify as a friend can, succeed and make money and to be prosperous, because that's what I want for people I agree with. Reward friends, punish enemies. From there, I think going forward, it's just going to be more or less about, can that be replicated on scale and against ongoing, threats from the left or lawfare, etc. And I think in this environment that now is really the time to start putting stuff together, because like I said at the beginning, you bought yourself 4 years, Trump's elected, the economy, I think, will more or less improve. We'll see. And in this environment, there's a lot more room to breathe and to actually do stuff that isn't going to come at the risk of, like what we saw in all the colleges, like what we've seen with the lockdowns and the lawfare, or people getting doxxed because they donated to Kyle Rittenhouse's legal fund, like that firefighter in Virginia.
I was just watching a lefty breakdown of the election, and they were going through all these different iterations of different leftist ideas and why Kamala didn't work or Kamala didn't work. And one is that they opine that the kids are not all right is one narrative. It's not so much that the young men are being radicalized, as that parents are seeing their young men just being consumed by video games and porn and just not getting ahead because they have no path forward. And I think that there's a large referendum, not for Trump per se, but what are we going to do with these young men? And the media apparatus that has been vilifying young men, the educational apparatuses that have been vilifying and shoving out young men, they're just not tenable anymore. People are totally fed up with paying for them. And so the political will to dismantle the Department of Education, that would be a godsend for a lot of people, might not go all the way through because of that bureaucracy. But I think that there is enough people, even of the leftist persuasion, that do want better for young men and understand that, okay, we're not so much we speak about being worried about them going and shooting up schools, but what we're actually worried about is them eating themselves alive with hedonism. So there's got to be somewhere between that. And I think entrepreneurialism, I think that something about the spirit of the PayPal mafia, something about the spirit of Elon Musk sending this rocket up into the sky and catching it on a fork the size of the Empire State Building, that is something that is so electric. It's like, this is the American dream. We can get together for that. And I do think, just symbolically or aesthetically, that there was something about Biden's concession speech yesterday that he just gave allowance to. This is a good thing. What's happening is the mandate of heaven. I've done everything that I could to stop this guy. I was told to do this thing. They probably drugged my soup this whole time. But God bless you. Go forth. Make America great again. I think that his smile really just did say, let's make America great. So whatever's going to happen, it might not be sweeping like deconstruction of the bureaucratic apparatus, but there might be an opening of the paths that are here now for young men, and then an opening through the dismantling of regulation for young men to do what they do best, which is go out on that Western boundary and do projects and explore and conquer in some way.
Well, I think the young man issue, I mean, I know that a lot of people in the media are saying, like, who cares? What about young women? But like, there is a problem with young women as well. That is true. I think because the ubiquity of female issues tends to not get framed in the same way as, like, what's the problem with young men and, like, all the think pieces that come out of it. But I think that aesthetically, though, there was such a stark contrast between Kamala Harris and Trump. Like, Kamala has like, Cardi B and Hollywoodism and very gauche celebrations of diversity. Whereas Trump appealed to a lot, like the revival of like chud culture that we saw. Like if you're a core millennial or if you're a Gen Xer, the chud culture that was around like the early 2000s was everywhere. It was MTV, it was new metal, it was, the ruthless aggression WWE era, it was Woodstock 99, like it was everything, right? Yeah. And so I think Trump is tapping into that vein. If you're an older Gen Xer, you remember Hulkamania, you remember tuning in to WCW and watching, the NWO. And if you're a millennial, like, you remember hearing Face the Pain by STEM before every UFC event. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like you remember watching The Ultimate Fighter. And so, but now Dana White is there right next to Trump. And so I think that Trump explicitly appealed, and, bro podcasters like Theo Vaughn and Joe Rogan. And I truly think if Kamala did go with Joe Rogan, that would have changed things. But I think Kamala, there's a lot of people that were coping that she ran a good campaign. That's ridiculous. No. She was thrusted in there, and the sort of media apparatus and celebrity factor really did not appeal to people the way that they thought it was going to appeal. And it seems that there's one, speaking of anons that are brilliant, my good mutual Contrary Pancake, he said this the other day about Obama and the 2010s are gone. And a lot of that sort of like millennial coded cultural cachet that comes from the 2010s, corporate Memphis, corporate white wall minimalism, clap stomp hey, indie, R&B, Obama America, celebration of diversity, MLK, like how do I describe the Obama aesthetic? It's like business. I said in my book, I called it business casual hip hop, right? I thought that was brilliant. But Midwestern emo is a much older bander. So but the point being is that 2010s culture war aesthetic, that sort of triumphalism of a very specific class and very specific demographics, Trump basically erased that. We're in a new Chuddian era. And,
what's the dimensions
people are
of a
listening.
Chud?
Zoomers are listening to Breaking Benjamin and Limp Bizkit again. This is amazing. Okay. This is something, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that Trump is an
this kind of like, what's Chud? Chud's kind of frat, but internet frat? Like, what is it?
Chud's like, it's a derogatory term for like...
Yeah, I know it's a derogatory, but what do you mean by it? What's your content? You're giving it a positive content.
Like basic, like sensitive young man, but also like, I guess you could say middle America, heartland, like explicit cultural... Like, how do I describe Chud? I mean, my chat will do it for me, but like... Yeah, it's more the lumpen proletariat gloff. It's like Chud is like very primal feeling, in your face culture. It's blue collar affectation type of stuff. Like the Chud Jack is the perfect meme for this. Like the sort of online doomer, troll personality. But the point being is that like Trump is someone said in the chat is a new gloff, ICP is kind of Chud. What's funny is that ICP is more hicklib. Insane clown, like juggalos are kind of hicklibs. It's really strange. We'll get into that another time. But aesthetically though, like think of it, Trump is the like gaudy 80s synthwave, golden columns kitsch, Gordon Gekko, Greed is Good, pop celebrity, vaporwave, like he is that, right?
I can see
Trump
that.
is like the opulence of wealth. He's a very specific part of Americana, right? But his fan base, his fandom, and Trump does have a fandom, is like the Chud, UFC, pro wrestling, metal, like bro podcaster, Sigma grind set, cryptocurrency. Like there's this mishmash of aesthetic signifiers that for some reason comes together under Trump, even though they're contradictory.
He's the Chud
the fact
father.
That he could go to like Heartland America. And what'd you say?
He's the Chud father.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Trump is 88. His audience is the 1990s. Yeah, that's very good, Miami Virtue. Where is it? Yeah, but for some reason, the complex and oftentimes contradictory aesthetic nature of Trump is very interesting. Barstool conservatism.
Well,
boy.
Trump hasn't abandoned his frame of what he is.
Right,
Since he's come down that elevator, he has always been Donald Trump, real estate, multi-billionaire who has, created successful companies, properties, golf resorts, all the rest. Even when he did the McDonald's thing, the truck driving stuff, visiting the farmers, he has always been in his power suit, his big red tie, and everything else that goes with his aesthetic. He's never had to pander in a way or condescend himself because it's inauthentic.
No, you're right.
He never had to hire a consultant like Mitt Romney to pay $40,000 to find out which pair of mom jeans he looks good in to relate to the working class. It was inauthentic and no one believed it. He is unapologetically himself. And as what Ben was saying, I think that you have this degree that guys want to build shit. They want to be creative. Yeah. They want to do these things. Yeah. Whereas and that's the thing, I think someone had said this, and again, it goes back to all these lovely anonymous people that we owe so much credit to, that said really what changed with this election was that Trump was cool. Unlike in 2020 or 2016, he was cool, and I mean, surviving the assassination attempt, all the things that he's done, the guy's just, for the average person, guy's kind of a badass. And to now be on the side of...
You cannot fake what he did at McDonald's.
No,
it was
can't.
A total stunt, but it had so much content inside of it. It had so much soul. It was like, and I love it that he's always selling these stupid ass NFTs. It's like, why are you doing that? But that's who you are. It's like who you are, It's odd.
Like
and
that
so
one,
you've got this
the Indian guy at McDonald's. He's like, I pray for you, Trump. It's like, whoa, that's like, but go ahead, Prudentialist.
Yeah, so I mean, like what we kind of witnessed was this large preference cascade where anyone who voted for him was just, either you were a diehard supporter or you were more or less saying, what's the word I'm looking for? Just this large, a preference cascade where people had said, you know what, the track we're on sucks. This guy is actually pretty cool. And I think Musk buying Twitter has a large role to play in that for the media ecosystem because you could see who he was. And the podcasting strategy was great. Him talking about addiction and the loss of his brother on Theo Vaughn, you aren't going to get that from any other politician. And you're not going to get that from anyone in Washington. And so people kind of looked around and said, that guy's cool. The people that are with him actually want to build stuff, and that's the place that I want to go. Because you see this now all over, where people are in restaurants or the Madison Square Garden rally, where people are wearing their Make America Great Again hats or openly saying they voted for Trump in a way that I know for sure that would have gotten me in a lot of trouble, if not fired in 2020, that now it's totally acceptable, or more or less acceptable in quite a few places. And I think that has a lot to show for where things are going. I think that, and it's hard for me to put myself in the left shoes just to see all these cancellation of subscriptions and the rest of them. But it goes back to that question of like, well, what does a progressive or a wokey or whatever you want to call them, what do they have to offer to young men and young white men in particular? Well, not really anything, because I look at Vaush or I look at David Pakman and I don't see a particular model of masculinity that appeals to me. But also, you're on the side of the largest child mutilation operation in the in modern history. We're not even talking about antiquity. And so it's just like, well, if I'm a young man and I happen to be like young, straight, white, and male, my alternative on the left is some kind of suicide, or I can be with these guys that kind of want me to live, or I can kind of just shut out, and that to me, it's as clear as day.
The left woke progressives, they blew their load in 2016 to 2020 with the young males. They had the males go up and they indoctrinated the males, and then the males go through a series of violent protests between 2016 and 2020. They got their jollies off. Maybe they had a couple of girlfriends, some polyamorous relationships or something like that. And what the people younger than them are going to see is that, wait, you guys did that and now this is what you get? Like, this is what do you have now for doing that? The people who went through that are like, a few of them benefited. Most of them like, this is not stable. I can't live my life throwing rocks through a federal building in Portland. I mean, it's not cool anymore. And plus, I kind of want something more for my life. And I think that the young male energy, it capped out in those fuck Trump, pardon my language, those screw Trump protests in 2016, and then the BLM and the Antifa protests. And anybody younger than that is going to see what happened to those people, like psychologically, what happened to those people. And any of their thought leaders, so-called, you have the passive, the David Packmans, the intellectuals, and then you have the really angry, ranty, porn huffing Vouches, and then Destiny, whatever he is. Like, who can replicate what Destiny does? He's brilliant for what he does, but I don't think anybody has the nervous system to replicate that. So you can't like follow in Destiny's shoes. I mean, sure, you can have any old guy come into your house and bang your wife, but there's some, whatever content he had, it's not replicable. And he doesn't, you could find like you could look up the Ben Shapiro, just for sake of argument. You could look up for Ben Shapiro. He's like, well, I can't be an influencer, but I can model him and go into law or go into business management, right? Like Ben Shapiro, he's a template for a certain guy where you can get ahead and live a good life. An online influencer can only really be an online influencer, speaking as one, right?
Yeah.
You can only really, like, what are you to aspire to? So I don't see anything that the left, the progressive left, has for 20-year-olds other than degeneracy and something that's already stale. It's not, it'll come back in fashion as some sort of ironic fashion thing, maybe in 10 years.
Yeah, like irony cells, Chapo, yeah.
Yeah, but right now they have nothing. So what does the right have to offer? The right has, the right now has several different vectors. You can get down to work and you can make friends a la OGC, like the Old Glory Club, the guys that you can do. You can make networks and everybody's going to have...
You can post racism online.
And well, and then you can like have you could like just post racism online because you don't have enough friends or you're particularly gifted at that. And as long as you have an anonymous account.
Oh, there's some masterful, they take racism to an art form, some of them.
That is an art form, but you can do that privately and then still live a life, where you're using that just to let off some steam. The Trump phenomena, the Elon phenomena, they're all laying groundwork. Like, you can get ahead in this life, whether you're running a roofing tile business and you're a Latino, or you're some white guy that just wants to make tons of money on Wall Street, like whatever, as long as you're getting ahead, we can all do this. We can all work together to do this, to be mutually beneficial. And I think that a lot of the racism stuff that the left is fearful of actually becomes a kind of bonding experience, like it used to be in 90s comedy. Like, we were all kind of racist to each other because that was a way to decrease the tensions and increase the brotherly bond of things. And so that doesn't become so front and center. Everything that the people are concerned about radical right doesn't really matter when the reality of the situation on the ground improves for everybody. All that radicalism will be only found in the troon corner of the internet. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah.
The women who are huffed up on testosterone and the men who are huffed up on estrogen, that's your radical contingent, and they only fit within the left framework. I don't see any other pathway for young men. And so I see that as a shiny possibility for some really interesting ideas to come out, but a lot of the radicalism is going to submit itself to actual prosperity doctrine kind of stuff. And I hope that some sincerity of religious experience is gifted to the young generation. I really do hope that people's hearts are open to the transcendent in a way that allows them to humble a lot of the egoic and hedonic things that are driving people crazy in this generation.
Well, I think that, sorry, I'm just...
No, that's okay. I ranted and now you guys are looking at the chat. And that's fine.
No, because New Glass posted something. I'm just warning him. But no, I think there was a possibility. Very scary, though. I don't want to give these people ideas. But particularly like the Antifa sector of these mass riots, doxing far-right Wignats, clashing with, Eric Stryker and all those guys at Seville, like, you know, that I think could have been something, because if you look at the New Left, if you look at 68, the riots in 68, whether in Europe or North America, and you look at those hippie communes and the dynamics, very predatory dynamics, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Where you have like psychos that were essentially running X cults, preying upon young, impressionable hippie women. That was like a weird form of masculinity that was there in the October Revolution in Russia. And I think they're going to hate me for saying this, but they hate us anyways. The only thing I could really see a possibility for the contemporary left, what I like to call transnational progressivism, would be something like a weird form of tankyism or MAGA communism a la Jackson, Hinkle, and Hawes. That's the closest the left can get to a masculine, forward revolutionary form of leftism that I can really think of. You know what I mean? So I don't really know what they could do, because all of the progressive stack, a lot of like really who they're appealing to is so repellent to that idea that a lot of people were saying that Kamala lost because she wasn't radical enough. She didn't appeal to her identity enough. And so I don't know if that's true, though.
I don't think
Kamala,
maybe
in terms of
I don't think that
getting them voting, but you know,
was she real? I guess I just saw a video today where she was loving on her crew that looked like she was actually being real. That's the only real thing I've ever seen from her. So for whatever reason, she didn't decide to bring that out. But I don't think it scales. There's nothing there. I don't think it's a great mystery. She's going to be so forgotten. You're going to be shocked by how forgotten she's going to be.
Yeah, like Biden the past few months. Except for now. Like, I've only heard about Biden the last few weeks. So, anyways.
Well, and I mean, again, it is a complete whiplash to see the man that had lost his Marbles? Nomination for president, and you know, and also he's non-compos mentis for, but in his mind. But I mean, also that too. And so, you know, the debate stage, you know, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, Joe. That kind of, you know, mumbling sunset kind of syndrome guy. Whereas now, you know, he's all joyful and cheery. It almost, you know, and I'm not one to, it almost not to be too conspiratorial, but it almost feels like, you know, I can throw my middle finger up and enjoy it because it's like this crazy lady's not in charge, thank God. And you know, so there's that. You know, that's the real joy, right? That we've talked about with all these.
What
campaigns.
Happens to Obama is going to be really interesting. I think Obama was the last masculine, like ascendant masculine leftist on the American stage, right? Like the aspirational. Like you could aspire to be an Obama, but whatever's happening to him is going to be really interesting to see.
But I think go ahead, Prue, go ahead.
Well, I mean, although it's funny that we say like this ascendant leftist masculinity, and then you read about like Obama's past, where he was like reading Foucault and trying to like, you know, be this academic that tries to get into women's pants. It's like, yeah, it's true. That is sort of the ultimate embodiment of ascendant leftist masculinity.
Yeah, but girlfriend.
You know,
the male feminist.
He's got that predatory male feminist attitude about him, and with but I mean, on top of that, I don't know where your kind of hot leftism is going to be. I really do think that the fight is going to actually emerge, as it has been in this election in a lot of evangelical circles. I think that your ascendant left-wing masculine alternative is going to be from some kind of liberal progressive Christianity, but it's not going to be the secular humanism. It's going to be, I go to this Presbyterian church, I'm a huge leftist, this is what I believe in. And it's going to be a fight over doctrine, it's going to be a fight over masculinity, and it's going to be a fight over, you know, what's left of American Christianity. And that's what's going to play out. I really do think that's the case. There was a gentleman who was running for Congress in Texas who was very much running on this, and he didn't look like a complete, you know, mutant like an Antifa mugshot. He looked pretty well put together for all intents and purposes. I think that's going to come and be a huge battle because as we saw in every election, and Stephen Wolfe is right about this, like white American evangelical Christians have been constantly voting against most left-wing things, and most American, Christians who are on the right are going to have this innate autoimmune response to progressivism. This is why in 2017, when the Pew Research Center did this study on religion, this is why, white American evangelicals were more anti-gay marriage than American Muslims who immigrated to this country. It just tells you where the antibodies are in this instance. And I do think that kind of fight for authentic lefty masculinity is going to definitely come out of, but also it's just going to come out of places where we least expect it. Like there's so many of these attempts to be like the swoletariat, we're like these gym bros that are like, we read Marxist theory, but we also go to the gym and lift. You have these socialist gun clubs and stuff like that.
I actually think it's going to be a classical liberal. Like that's the going to be the left, like the reconstituted Colin Wright, Coleman Hughes, the guys who are going to be back into the establishment because the establishment.
It'll be like Destiny, like unironic neoliberalism, like that one Eastern European guy on Twitter that always goes after Martin. It'll be like there is a sector of like
the Drew guy, the Australian.
There's Slazik and there's that other guy. And there's that Australian guy too. But like there's a sector of like unironic neoliberals that are like Swamarcus. There you go. Like people like that where they're
I can't wait for him to unprivate his account.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
But anyways, did I cut you off, Benjamin?
No.
I think Ben has a very good point, Gio. Sorry to interrupt. I think that I think he's absolutely right because as someone who has now kind of entered the fray with sort of some of this drama that I don't really want to participate in because I don't talk about it. But like I was on Orange Show a couple of weeks ago to talk about the whole James Lindsay stuff and the back and forth. Not my business, not my fight. But I think that's a pretty strong, thorough line because if I'm James and I have a record of being sort of a new atheist and his earliest books are about that, and I'd imagine I'm in a pretty awkward spot if I'm in these TP USA pastor conferences talking about like neo-Gnostic Marxism or whatever, and to then see a whole other faction of guys like myself or Oren or whoever kind of emerge, that's going to be a battle line. And I think that the quicker that line gets drawn and he calls himself a man of the left and stops associating with like TPUSA, the better. But that fight's going to be there. And I think that's already been here for a while because you've had moderate people of, the left me, that I would consider myself more of a free speech, classical liberal guy. I mean, Joe Rogan, for all intents and purposes, is that. And those lines will be there, and it'll be there, and it'll be in the churches, and then it's going to be just with your average, ordinary people. And it's going to be very weird when this ecosystem, to a large extent it already has due to this election cycle, broaches the mainstream. And it's like, how many people can adequately defend their ideas without trying to explain, 20 plus years of lore of ideas and blogs? That'll be an interesting thing to see.
Well, the thing is, like, there was an attempt by, in terms of geopolitics, in terms of reviving the spirit of liberal democracy, there was this, like, absolutely insane series of articles and tweets by people like Ed Lutwak, who said that, like, well, Ukraine is a good thing because, like, young men could test their armor. And Richard Spencer believes in this, by the way, that, like, young men can test their armor by going to Ukraine and fighting Russia. But it turns out that, like, a lot of leftists, that, like, the Reddit battalions that did actually go and volunteer in the Foreign Battalion, they weren't uncomfortable with a lot of the far-right ideas that the Ukrainians believe in the military. And B, they don't want to get domed by Russian artillery. So it's like, I understand the spirit of, like, trying to revive a sort of heroic form of liberalism by fighting what is perceived in the media as, like, this foreign dictatorial Asiatic fascistic power. But in practice, it doesn't really work because you can't expect, like, people that were, like, throwing bricks at the police in Portland to then go with a Kalashnikov on the battlefield with only 3 weeks of training. And they're in there with, like, guys that have spinny wheel tattoos and they're, like, getting set to the front line. It's like, it's not going to work. Right.
I need to apologize. I forgot about a paragon of leftist masculinity, Will Stancil.
There you go.
He could be the path. to capture that masculine energy.
Yeah. He could.
He doesn't block anybody.
No, he really doesn't. And I'll give Will a lot of credit. Well, I mean, he's blocked a few people, but I mean, I'll give him a lot of credit to run for office, fail, and to become sort of a lolcow to a lot of respect, but to still be like, you're kind of like this clinging on, diehard believer, go down with the ship, fists pumping and swinging. There's a lot to appreciate about that as a character, as a character trait. So, I mean, there's that, but also, I think that, you mentioned Ben earlier about Ben Shapiro, I mean, like the whole, there's a pathway to be like a lawyer or like middle management and to do well for yourself. And I think that perhaps to some extent you could say Will is a dyed-in-the-wool activist believer, and I think he's some sort of policy wonk. And I mean, there's a lot of people who work in that area. I mean, Curtis Yarvin calls that like the professional progressive working in the NGO activist space.
They were very big under the Obama years. Very big.
Well, I mean, they're still big now.
Kill that industry. We have to kill that industry.
Yes. And I will hopefully help kill it. But at the same time, I'm part of it. That's a weird in between. I'm a professional progressive by trade.
You're qualified. Seppuku. Kamikaze.
But I'm not going to do that on air. Not for this stream, because I'll be dead, but Gio will still kill me because the show will get demonetized. But I think.
Yeah, go ahead, Prude.
But I think that there is something to say, because I mean, like, there is a very classic American progressive stereotype about being the man that rallies for good. Like, I think that Clarence Darrow is awful as a human being and on his historical track record, but a lot of people consider Clarence Darrow the reason why they became a lawyer, or why they consider themselves a progressive activist. There is a pantheon of leftist heroes. I mean, I might see them as a list of enemies, but the point being is that there's something there. Sora Bamari, right? And so all these people are out there that they have this list, and I mean that'll have to emerge, but that's a post-mortem that they're going to have to deal with. And right now, I think that they can't, I think that they're upset because Harris had to distance herself from all this crazy woke bullshit that had more or less, that she couldn't escape from, because her entire record when she was running for president in 2020, being the VP, being a senator, being the, attorney general or the district attorney or whatever, all of her career has been dyed in the wool, what we would call woke progressivism for 20 plus years. You can't escape that. But at the same time, there's a lot of die-hard in the wool, left-leaning activists online that are like, well, she cocked, she moved to the center. Why didn't she just stand bold in her ideas? And it's because those ideas are fundamentally unpopular. Nightmare Vision said this earlier today, and I thought this was a great take. And he had said, they are conceptually imprisoned. They can't, until they're willing to escape their frame, that perhaps what I'm advocating for isn't realistic to get there, then yeah. And I have these arguments all the time with a lot more of my professional right-leaning friends. Like I've had back and forths with Jeremy Carl, who is a man I greatly respect and a man whose work I quite enjoy and I appreciate. And I like talking to him, but he and I disagreed privately not too long ago, just a few days ago, on a certain issue. And, we hashed it out, and he was explaining to me, he's just like, we got to, it's the whole, do you want the bill to pass that doesn't get everything that you want, or do you want to win the argument and not get anything? And I think that until the left is willing to play that game with any degree of sincerity, they're going to have this crisis of being trapped within their concepts. Because, again, to quote some other anonymous Twitter poster, you can disagree on economics, you can disagree on market, based healthcare, socialized healthcare. But if you disagree on, black people can do no wrong, trans women are women, and all this other woke nonsense, unless you're willing to obey those 5, pillars.
The tenets,
that was Jen's, by the way.
Okay, well, Jen, yeah, and I mean, thank you for giving credit to where it's due. If you disobey any of those, you're a pariah, right? Even I guarantee you that, if it weren't for a few issues on probably the criticism of Israel, I'm pretty sure Barry Weiss would still have her job at her old place. I'd imagine that if she didn't disagree on 1 or 2 progressive issues, she'd still be there. Oh, yeah, and it just goes to show that there's some conceptual rigidity that the left is always going to have a problem with Whereas I think the right, for as much as we lambast, say, certain forms of diversity, whether it be racial or otherwise, I think there's more ideological diversity on the right than there is the left right now. And that's going to be the big dividing line for how things go. And I think, like you said, Ben, that classical liberal angle that most of the online right's kind of tossed as part of this dustbin of history, that will probably get picked up by the left in a lot of ways.
It's already signs. There's this really rather hideous irony leftist. His name's Gravity Rainbow. I think he fled to Blue Sky recently. But I managed to read one of his Substacks where he was lionizing John Dewey and the sort of like literal classical liberalism or classical progressivism in America, minus all the eugenic stuff that the progressives in the 19th century in America believed in, but sort of like the mass populated edge. I believe the essay, and I'm probably going to review it on the Core Report, I believe the essay is called Fascist Slop, about like Elon spreading disinformation. And like, actually, John Dewey believed, and all these other progressive liberals believed in like an educated populace and a shining hill on the rock, and that we could deliver like what Habermas would call like communicative rationality. And we need to like, that's why we need to like destroy Twitter and Elon Musk and Donald Trump and Joe Rogan, because, it's like, they're like, I mean, and in a lot of ways, a lot of the accounts that were on Elon Musk's favorability list were like slop mongers. They're coal posters, guys like N Wokeness and Cat Turd or Chaya Ratchik or whatever. Like, it's just, yeah, they post coal. Let's face it, right? But I think that the framing of the reaction to Donald Trump's presidency, and a lot of people in the online right have been saying this, is more despondency than a call to overt action, the way in 2016 a lot of those Black Lives Matter and Antifa cells were activated as. But who knows down the pipe, it seems to be an internal abnegation that has been the response to what they truly believe is going to be like East Germany, that if you are of a particular gender or persuasion, that you're going to be hunted down by chuds and that you're going to go to camps. Like, they actually believe that you shouldn't tell people your politics, because like, you never know if a Magatard is going to be listening to you and reporting you to the Stasi. So they believe this stuff. And so if you look at, for example, young women saying that they need to adopt the 4B movement from South Korea, first of all, it's not going to happen the way it does in South Korea as opposed to America, because in South Korea, they had a very specific goal, and they had a very specific gender war where all the men are true cells and all the women are femcells, and they've both radicalized themselves. Whereas in America, in North America in general, there just is too many factors in terms of the culture, in terms of media, for it to like really take off. But the point being is that you have people reporting, Benjamin, this is stuff that you talk about in your show, people of a particular orientation that are sunsetting. Whether you can believe those numbers or not is a different story. But, I would imagine, yeah, of course, some of them have been pushed into despondency because of Trump, but whatever, right? And so also you have the framing by, who's that woman that created she had this long thread that maybe me and you and Prude can review if it's even worth it. I mean, it's terrible. But who's the one that did the 1319 project? What is it called? 1319?
Hannah B. Jones, or that's her Twitter anon.
Her name's
Ida B. Wells.
Ida B. Wells, yeah. She had
Twitter, but
yeah. She had this long thread where she goes into how multiracial democracy is a failure, because basically it's the same talking point that you even saw in 2016, where white people and white women in particular, they see that their privilege is threatened. And now you have Hispanic people, that it's like all these people, like there's this multiracial coalition of anti-blackness, and that only black people really voted for Kamala. Hispanic people voted for Trump. And ergo, you have this like the main building block of the progressive coalition in America, which has been black people, that there's like this multiracial anti-blackness and that's why multicultural democracy is doomed, and that's why we're going to get like Trumpian authoritarianism. And let me just go to the last thing she said. Black Americans will vote like they vote, not because they're aligned with every single Democrat policy, because they understand this country with a clarity that can't be challenged that can be challenging for people who have not had to live under apartheid in the U.S. Oh my God, who've never known what it's not like to not to be able to cast a ballot, not to have rights of citizenship. Black Americans know American fascism because they lived under it, things that Hispanics don't know. Black people uniquely understand this notion. We see rationalizing by other races, voting against Black interests, racism, sexism, xenophobia. Now America stands on the precipice of an authoritarian style of governance never before seen in 248 years. Well, I thought they were going to say it's never before seen in like 80 years, so, or 90 years? How long has it been since World War II, Prude? 80 years?
Almost, 70 something now?
Yeah, almost 80 years. So
almost 80 years.
Yeah, but I guess she means like slavery, of course. So you have this framing that, and listen, I know from the perspective of the online right, it's terrible coal, but it is kind of like, I'm gonna heat for saying this, but it is kind of enduring to see like Trump appealing to sort of like wholesome Chungus, like everyone can get involved in being based. Like if you're Mexican.
Yeah, what's the barrier entry to serving fries at McDonald's? I mean, that is. He went all the way down.
No, but the fact that like Hispanics voted against mass immigration, sort of like, you have like my based Hispanic people, my based Black guy. It's like I think Trump consciously played to like that form of like we're different, but we can come together to agree on fundamental things, which I mean a lot of people on the on right don't like, but I think like it is funny like seeing Indians pray for Trump and
I think the enduring unfortunate consequence of the civil rights / affirmative action era has been the production of perhaps the most loathsome version of Black females, the overproduction of them, and then the installing of a certain Black female into a position of power. And it's just gonna work to just, I think it's such an unfortunate thing for Black women that this system has promoted these hot-headed, self-centered, narcissistic blowhards as the paradigm of what what Black supremacy is. That's something that the Democrats have gone all the way in. And Kamala kind of was kind of put the brakes on it. She wasn't totally overbearing in the same way that Joy Reid or the Hannah Jones is, but it's a trope that we see over and over and over again. If you watch movies like the last 5 years since the 2020, they've just overproduced this kind of version of the disempowered, empowered Black woman specifically. And it's so terrible. It's like that's your version of the feminine and of Blackness, if that is a concept at all. But I think aesthetically it is a concept. But instead of Aretha Franklin, or these Black artists, we have these academic fat asses who don't do anything but deride everybody and say that they have secret knowledge that nobody else can gain.
Yeah, the dismantler.
The dismantler phenotype.
Yeah.
No, and I there has been a great, and I mean, Nicholas Saldo, and sorry, Gio, but I mean, his 4 horsemen of like the online apocalypse or whatever for politics, fake, gay, cringe, retarded, like those 4 things. And I mean, like, if you could not be any more saccharine other than just pure spite, pure racial hatred and animus, that says everything that we're doing is out to get you. We're getting what's ours. There's nothing you can do about it. And we don't care if anyone speaks out against us on our side. We're in charge. And the whole, excuse me, I'm speaking thing. Like, if you wanted to embody every bad stereotype of like, excuse me, miss, I understand that you're having a conversation, but this is a movie theater type person. This was like the last 10 years of lefty politics. in the last 4 years especially. And that's there. And it's not, I mean, if it goes away, that would be awesome. I'm not holding my breath because that is pretty entrenched. There's a lot of money going into it, but we'll see. I mean, I'm not holding my breath because I
think it's got a shelf life. I think White Boy Summer. I think I think Lomez has been going on this propaganda spree of promoting young, attractive people promoting Trump. He's just really leaning into the positive vibes of that.
And that's situation. And that goes, and again, if it's an election about vibes, and I hope that that's the case. My chief concern is not that it doesn't have a shelf life; it's that a lot of what allowed that to rise
even worse.
It's legally entrenched.
Yeah, no,
that's right. What I'm saying. Like, yeah, you're right. The cool, sexy people are all for Trump. We're all for building stuff. It's almost as if we're trying to bring back yuppies, which I'm all for. Don't get me wrong. Like if we're gonna bring back
shirt nationalism,
polo shirt nationalism, like all this ice cream nationalism, like green polo nationalism, like country, whatever.
National
I'm all for it. Like
whatever
brings back the Ralph Lauren stuff that's been posting. Bring that shit back. That is so great. I hope that happens. I have a bunch of Ralph Lauren like American flag sweaters. I'm gonna go wear one for the next stream. But again, the problem is like that's cool. But legally speaking, the DEI stuff, the anti-white stuff, it's all still entrenched in law. And that's my concern. Like, unless that goes away, like vibes are still vibes. But the reason why men and a lot of white women too, like one reason why they all went this direction is because, for all this talk about systemic racism, it's all systemically against the people that voted for Trump to begin with.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work to be done. I feel a lot of optimism. I feel a lot of relief. There's a lot of work to be done. And I think there's the will to do that work. And I think that at this sharp opportunity, like bridge building and optimism is just leaning into that aspect of Trumpianism. Whoever like package your ideals and your plan to somebody who could work at a fry station and who could work at a rocket station, right? Like whatever idea can tie the rocket scientist to the fry cook, like that's Trumpian. That's Trumpian. That's the Trump America. So whatever ideas can sit within that, those are the ones to run with.
That puts Richard Giannani in a really awkward spot now, doesn't it, Gio?
Yeah. What about the what do you mean?
Well, because I mean the whole because what is the elite human capital discussion other than like this abject hatred for like the fry cook or like the chud on Twitter? Yeah. And I mean the thing is that the more anons that I meet in real life, the more they happen to be well put together single young men who have ambition, or they're all like married guys around Ben's age that have their shit together with money to throw around. Like there's no in between. But they're all on board for the same message that says things have gone terribly wrong. The future cannot happen because my progeny can't get far in life, and things have to change. And so, like, there's going to be this, like, oh, well, the dregs are here, but the dregs are on board with the message that wants you to get things done, whether that's throwing a rocket and then catching it with this giant skyscraper fork or whatever. Like, that's there. And I think that there's that's sort of this winning political formula right now in the United States. That doesn't mean that you're going to get the.
And if you're a fry cook, you could shit post to your heart's content.
Well, there was a great
Amen. Tweet. I shit post on the taxpayer dime. It's fantastic. One day I'm going to get in trouble for that. But I mean that is true, and I just think that one of the big things is that you can't hate the little guy, or you can't hate the fry cook as much as you want to. Because I get it, classism in America is not going away. It's not our number one big dividing issue in America. I think it is still race, and it probably will be forever, really. But there's classism, obviously. No one wants to be poor. No one wants to be like the fry cook with nothing going on in his life. But at the same time, those guys in this American experiment of art, well, they get to vote just as much as I do, or just as much as any of, well, not you, Gio, you don't really get to say here. But maybe when you move and become a citizen, we'll let you win.
Maybe
we'll trade you for Pedro Gonzalez. I think that's totally fair. And after that, then you can get a say.
Maybe you could send Kamala back to Vancouver Island.
That would be great. We will take 1 million Gios for all the Kamalas in America. That sounds like a great trade. And but again, because all those people have this say, you got to bring them onto the coalition. And I don't want us to have like a slightly like a MAGA coat of paint on like the 80s neoliberalism of Reagan. I don't want that. And I think that just out of national security necessity, we are reshoring. I mean, Trump started it. Biden continued it, and then Trump wants to like turbocharge it. And he's got a lot of like these, defected elite factions that want him on board with it. So I mean, like, there's a reason for a lot of optimism in America, but a lot of other issues that might be if you're a single issue guy, or you're a big purity on one specific issue, whether it be immigration or certain law or whatever, that may not be your priority. But I think that that's just the nature of politics to begin with. But I think that a lot of the things that, Gio and I might be all for, we may not necessarily get, but I think we're going to get some things out of it, which, as I said at the beginning, that buys me more time.
Yeah.
Well, there's a great tweet by a good mutual of mine, or he follows me. I should mutual him. Baron von Rittenhouse at Haasfell_Stone. He said, Elon, the genius technologist from South Africa who will take us to Mars, mobilizing Amish farmers to vote for Trump in Pennsylvania, helping to deliver a decisive victory, is somehow a beautiful fact. And then someone quote tweeted him called Mystagogue, said, this is our KO futurism.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. No, because I think like both sides of like the new contemporary E-right fusionism is like a weird form of like trad, wholesome Chungus, living on your own homestead, and also futurism, space exploration, technology that's used for masculine purposes rather than turning life into just a human battery, Wally World. Also other more problematic things in that sector of the futurist right wing that has to do with human biodiversity or whatever. But the point being is that there is sort of like a new fusionism between those people who are still trad, or whatever you want to call trad, or the affectations of like agrarian simplistic lifestyle, and very forward-thinking futurist space exploration, H.B. Duisbergery. Like there is a sort of like, if the old fusionism of the Reagan era of National Review and William F. Buckley can be superseded by a new, more terminally online one, then I think that's probably going to be for the best. Now, there's a lot of problems with it. The trads are never going to get along with like the Nietzschean vitalist eugenicists, but I think it's much more of a better framework in terms of like the thinking of young men and some young women than it is like libertarians and warhawks and social conservatives a little bit. It's like, you know what I mean? Like that's an old paradigm that's going to get thrown out the window, hopefully. I mean, you never know. I mean, the establishment might re-territorialize and they might try to like make a power play, right? Like the Republican Party still isn't, like all those old decrepit boomers like Mitch McConnell, they're still not going away. I mean, maybe in 20 years, yeah, but I'm worried about like these Lincoln Project, mainstream Republican, mainstream Democrat people, what they're going to do now that they're desperate. You never know. So
no, I think that you're right. Is that has to be the model, or that will be the competing model. I think that the Trump camp and his team is going to present, because you're right. Like Musk using his money, one, to offer $1 million checks to people who signed others to vote for Trump is a genius move, because he's doing all the things that Democrats do. We're going to bust people to go vote. We're going to like make sure people are registered to vote. We're going to knock on doors. I'm going to rely on this like strange gay guy with long hair to go register people to vote Republican. Like all of these things that normally the GOP just doesn't do. It took like one autistic engineer, billionaire, playboy philanthropist to be like, actually, no, I want to win. And it's like, damn, where has this been? Where's this energy been my entire life working in politics? Like, that's crazy. Like, it's nice to see. And I think that I mean, on the internet, yeah, that eternal fight between like someone with, a certain flag in his bio bitching about Nietzsche is going to always happen. Friedrich Nietzsche deserves a better class of critic online. I'm not the first to say it, but I agree with it. Nietzsche deserves a better class of critic. But at the same time, I think that model going forward is fine. Like, if you're actually going to put a political environment where I just want to be left alone is something that I can actually have, where I'm not going to get harassed by lefties for wanting to be left alone in my small Christian community where I get to do whatever we want to do as Christians, like that'd be great. But until that gets achieved, that's going to be a little difficult. But if that's what he's offering on the table, that's a pretty good start. We can do better, but it's a good start. And I think that will be the futurist fusionism that we're going to see here. And I think that that's going to be the fight that we're going to see in the next 74 days is the model that, this whole Musk, Rogan, Trump, this energy, this great vibe, this thing where I want to do the YMCA dance, that has to fight against the Paul Ryanism, the Mike Johnsons of the world, the Senator John Thunes, all these business as usual. I want my businesses. I want my kickbacks. I want my pork spending for agricultural subsidies. So the Walton family gets another $1 billion a year or whatever. That's your fight. And I think that you're going to see, Lord willing, a very strange political realignment. Like, you're telling me the guy who is revolutionized regenerative agriculture to be a right-wing issue has been offered a job for the incoming Department of Agriculture? That's huge. That would have never been seen with any other presidency.
Wait, who?
Salatin or something like that was his name. And apparently maybe Thomas Massey might be your agriculture secretary. Things are going great, right? If that's going to be the case. But only time will tell if that actually comes to fruition. But these are the battles that are going to play out in the next 70 some odd days. And that side, I would rather have win than the John Thunes and John Cornyn's of the world that hate me. Joel
Salatin.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mimetic Sommelier. Another great anime poster. I think Kane should be at the Department of Labor personally, but we'll see what happens.
I need to.
You guys know Kane, right?
Yeah.
No.
So you need to leave, Ben?
Yeah, I got to bounce. But Kane who? Sugar Kane?
The wrestler, Glenn Jacobs. He also is the mayor of Knoxville, Tennessee.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He's a big Trump guy.
It's great to hang out with you guys. See, I'll have you back on soon. Should swing by my channel. We can talk about all the things that are fit to talk about, and some that are not fit to talk about because Gio is just constantly tone policing himself and others.
I'm
on this
sorry.
channel.
I'm just worried, man. I'm sorry.
You are worried. You need to take a chill pill, man.
Yeah, I know.
Well, before you leave, Ben, where can people find you and your work?
Oh, yeah. Twitter, Benjamin A. Boyce. YouTube, Benjamin A. Boyce. Podcast conversations. Just a lot of conversation.
Your links are down below, so.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's cool.
There.
I'm here.
Well, yeah, thanks so much for coming on to chat with us. We really appreciate
it. Yeah, thank you.
Seriously, great conversation. And if any guests find me or know of me and have anybody that they want me to interview, I'm always looking for good ideas. So do hit me up.
Well, thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Friend. Thank you.
My pleasure. Ciao.
All right. Well, now it's just us.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think he had a heart out. So
well, it was good. I'm glad that we did that. I mean, I thought that was a good time. So we thank you, Ben, when you see the rest of this, if you do.
Yeah, and just a reminder, the Entropy link is in the comments and down below. If you want to sneak those super chats, I do prefer Entropy because they take less of a cut than YouTube.
So true.
Yeah. So and the lady that runs Entropy is pretty nice about getting everything out on time. So I want to support Entropy.
Agreed.
So there has been let's see, there's been
hey, now we can talk about e-drama.
Yeah, but there's been an absolutely insane response against white women that I've seen before, but it's they're literally posting the worst forms of sadism I've ever seen. It's very
this happened in 2016. This really did. And it's the same sort. I mean, actually, because I think Trump did better with white women in this election than he did in 2016. Jack, correct me if I'm wrong. This is just my gut feeling based off like a skimming of the data. I haven't seen 2016's polling data in forever. But like when that came out, my timeline, like my personal Twitter account, which I have long since deleted, even then I was like, wow, this is insane. Like, this sort of hatred because white married women voted for their husbands or voted for, what they thought was better for them against like Hillary Clinton. Like, you don't want to be part of the pantsuit mafia, and then of course every non-white person on Twitter was just like, no, we need to do like Haitian Revolution all over again. And I mean, don't get me wrong, they still want to do that. That whole political race hatred has not gone away on the left. And this happened in 2016. And this is why white women have been the focus of all these elections with Trump, has been about the suburbs. And he did lose a little bit of them in 2020, in part due to some of the issues and of course the rioting. But I think that between the Lake and Riley stuff and then the Haitian stuff and immigration and just cost of living, because the biggest, spenders aren't men for consumer spending, it's females. And if you can't afford shit and your quality of life sucks, like, sorry, I'm going to go vote for the other guy. And again, it goes back to that preference cascade. Like, actually, no, Trump is way better than this obviously inauthentic diversity hire,
Yeah. There was a thread that, Martin's tweeting about who's that Transformer, Juniper. There was this thread that Patrick Casey did about the responses that people had to like why Kamala lost on the left. And let me pull up some of them. Where is the thread? We're all tweeting vivaciously.
So true.
Yeah. Here it is. I think it's here. So we have some of them that say like Kamala should have appealed to her identity more. Let me look at them. Let me just go to his media.
Well, I mean, even then, right? Like, Kamala should appeal to her identity more. What identity? I grew up in a middle-class home. Like, no, you spent most of your time in Canada growing up. You had a Hindi background, excuse me, and your dad was an economist Marxist. Like, no, you have no authenticity to you. Nothing about you is legitimate. You have lied constantly. Like, you can't have authenticity for a woman who has spent her entire career being fake and gay and cringe. Like, I'm sorry, like there's what identity other than just being, other than these like extreme lefties who hate whites saying like, actually she should have doubled down more on hating white people, which is exactly what
the first one that Patrick Casey had. So that she is not a white man, according to Ali Samarco. According to some like irony leftists with the South Park Avi, Kamala lost because Americans are soft, stupid, privileged babies. Kamala lost because the election was rigged. That Russia stole the election for Trump again. Putin did something, unclear what that something was, according to some journalist at the New Yorker. And my favorite of all, Kamala lost because Ann Seltzer's poll showing Republicans doing poorly motivated them to prove her wrong, according to Ann Seltzer. Kamala lost because she did not tell young men that graping is back on the table. What's this about? Discordian Kitty. Oh, we have a follower of Robert Anton Wilson. Says that, okay, I'll bite. How do we reach young men who like what Trump is selling? Do we also promise them control over women's bodies? Do we tell them that graping is back on the table because appealing to their empathy is woke and lecturing? And then, it's quote tweeting someone that says if Kamala loses, very possible, there needs to be a real discussion about how Democrats can appeal to young men. Then Kamala lost because Dems don't recognize that most men aren't reasonable or rational, according to some black ethno-nationalist. Kamala lost because of Biden stabbing her in the back. Kamala lost because of Obama for some reason, according to Josh Crosshar. From Biden world, there's no single reason that we lost, but a big reason is because the Obama advertisers publicly encouraged Democrat infighting to push for Joe Biden. But that's not true because Obama kind of shivved Biden for a little bit there too. So
yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure Obama's guys were not for, or some of Obama's people weren't.
Oh, and according to Joy Behar, Kamal lost because the internet was not censored enough like it was in 2016.
Well, there might be some truth to, well, there's definitely a lot of truth to that, because 2020 with all the, I mean, everything that would have made this election possible, from the video edits to Musk to, it would not have existed under Parag Twitter. End of discussion. That's true. But
like
screw you.
Elon Musk retweeting an an Arc. Well, is he go by now? Arcthumo. Ben Beach Boy. Yeah, Beach Boy.
Yeah,
like
Beach Boy.
Retweeting a Beach Boy edit is like incredible. Discordians are not explicitly a Robert Anton Wilson thing. No, but Robert Anton Wilson did popularize Discordianism, if I recall. But yeah, so you have all these like people that are running around trying to find an explanation as to why the sky was falling. And I don't think that they're really ready to integrate the real reasons. And there's some video that Eudaimonia, the husband of Sean, had posted from Bausch, saying that, like, basically blaming the base and blaming like, these people have no real coherent explanation as to why they lost, but it's just a culmination of different forces as to why they lost. And I think that I honestly did not anticipate Trump winning this big. I mean, it's not a Reagan style blowout like in 1980, but
no,
like,
but I mean, okay, regardless of the election, like whatever California votes out.
Yeah, I'm going to go get some water, Prude. So
yeah. This is the first time in 20 years that a Republican has won the, and I'm going to turn off my camera here. This is the first time in 20 years that a Republican has won the popular vote since George W. Bush's re-election campaign in 2020. That's a big thing to consider in this. And I mean, his popular vote tally is not too far off from his record in his record in 24 for the popular vote is not that different by a small margin of his record high in the 2020 election. And so what has this all led to? Why are they having such a hard time making themselves? One, they are incapable of introspection. Leftists are not capable of introspection that breaks the boundaries of their leftist frame. And as we know from Jonathan Haidt, and as we know from Dave the Distributor's constant talks with leftists, that lefties do not understand the right wing at all whatsoever. They are diehard, and they actually believe in what they're for, and they are truly ready to go to war on the things that they are for, in terms of belief, in terms of their retribution, their vengeance, their hatred, their libel. And so all these things play out the way that they do. And what does this mean? That they're incapable of looking at us. They're conceptually trapped and imprisoned, as Nightmare Vision says. And so now they're struggling to find answers. But also, secondly, and I think this is the fun one to look about, is that this forces them to consider what 2020 was. Are you really going to tell me that Joe Biden was the most popular candidate in the history of the United States, and that now this leads you to have the same kind of Sidney Powell-esque conspiracy theories about Dominion voting machines, and you're telling me about how Starlink changed the vote totals, and that Elon Musk and Putin have been working together because they threw that article out that Putin has spoke with Elon or vice versa. And so all these things play out, and now they're trying to make sense of everything that went wrong, and they can't, for the life of them, realize that it's them. The call is coming from inside the house. It's you who shit your pants. It is you whose dilating axe wound tells me to stay away from you. But it's impossible for them to realize that, because at the end of the day, you and I, Gio, are just some weird fanatical followers of the second coming of a certain leader in the 1940s that tells us that we are here to put you all back in chains, and that it's, you know, your choices are gone, your freedoms are gone. Now, please get back to the radiator so you can be chained up. That's what they believe in. And that's, and again, this goes back to, what was it? Was it Corey Mahler or Black Pill, that, you know, you're arguing with the TV, and the TV doesn't turn off, right?
Yeah, like, exactly.
And for them, it's been a constant stream since 2015 that this guy is Satan, that this guy is, you know, a certain Austrian painter, that this guy is a fascist, this guy is da-da-da-da-da, he's a Putinist or whatever. Your mind is broken because you can't believe that everyone around the world, or around the country, excuse me, is sick of your shit. You just can't. And I'm sorry. And one day I hope that we can have a sane conversation again. And maybe one day you will be less crazy. But for you to, in order to be less crazy, I'm sorry, you're going to have to lose, and you're going to have to lose a lot. And until you're willing to maybe accept that you're wrong and that maybe there's time for you to change, I don't see it happening. And so, yeah, they're going to struggle and they're going to come about it. There are some smart lefties out there. I know that they exist because I talked to some of them. And they're at least somewhat capable of understanding these positions that come from on the right. They disagree with them, but they at least understand them. And I think that it's going to be really interesting to see if those guys come out on top. Because right now, who gets to inherit the Democrats right now? Right now, technically, the House Minority Leader is still Hakeem Jeffries, who is a radical, non-white, anti-white race communist. He's still in charge. The legacy media is still in place for what it is. That's not going away anytime soon. Some of the revenue models might change and they might move to podcasts or whatever, but it's all still there. So unless
their patronage networks are still there,
in large part, yes. I think some of that will change in the coming years. But until then, this model for theirs is there. And ironically, and again, this goes back to the Anons, who are really the big thought leaders in this little space of ours. Someone had said that, for all this talk of stuck culture, we've been stuck in 2020 for 4 years. You've been stuck dialectically, politically, conceptually in a crystal that is 2020 for 4 years. And someone finally took a hammer and broke it open. And now we can actually resume business as usual. We were interrupted because of an obvious fraudulent issue in 2020. And now we get to resume. And now we get to say, this is over. And it's ironically the right-wing guys that get to say, I am now unburdened by what has been. And not you. They have to carry this burden. And they're going to hopefully carry it until we deport every last single one of them back to where they came from.
Whoa! Yeah, but then, like I was saying before, like I think realistically, of course, immigrants that have been in America for a long time, I don't think Trump is going to deport them anytime soon. And I think that the best you can get is fixing the border issue, fixing visa issues, deporting millions that are illegal, that are criminal, starting with the criminals first, and people that do pose serious risks to the stability of various institutions from healthcare and elsewhere. I mean, in Canada, for instance, the situation is incredibly bad with the intra-ethnic conflict between Sikhs and Indians. I mean, the point where, like, they're protesting a Hindu temple, which is like such a violation of religious freedom that even Justin Trudeau had to come out and denounce. But
I mean, again, like, on a civilizational level, it begs the question. It's just like, are you capable of, maintaining what we would call a classical liberal civilization? No, these people can't.
No.
And this goes back to that issue. It's just like, they're incapable of what we would consider, 90s liberalism. Like, that's gone. And so what do we have to deal with now? Well, we get to deal with the whole, third world conflicts are now here on our soil, and that's the problem. I think anyone worth their salt, and again, these are the unspoken, uncomfortable conversations, is that, you can't share civilization with these people.
Yeah.
The ones that want to play ball, sure. I'm sure some of them will probably adapt and stay, but the rest, not so much.
Yeah, there's a lot of Hispanics that resonate with the message of Trump, because there was this viral tweet by some black guy, like I think he's affiliated with some kind of Act Blue coalition propaganda, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Asking like, oh man, do we really want to see, like, and they didn't use the term black pill because they're not like us, but like, they're not using our lingo. I mean, some of them do use our lingo.
Yeah.
But they're like, oh, do you really want to see like the voting demographic of Hispanic people that vote for Trump? And it's like multiracial, anti-blackness. But he's asking, why would people do that when Trump ran on a campaign of mass deportation? Why would Hispanics vote? Well, think of it. Okay, if you're Hispanic, and even if you came here illegally, but you like were here for multiple generations, you made a life for yourself, or you came here legally, you have to live in predominantly Hispanic neighborhoods. Some of them don't, but like the ones that a lot of them do, live in, projects and predominantly Hispanic neighborhoods of illegal people that commit crimes. And it's like, why do you think they want to deport those people? Why do you think they voted for Trump? Whereas when it comes to African Americans, it's a different issue because they too are affected by mass immigration, but they're, especially black women, they're like ardent support of the Democrats has really been demonstrated by this election. There are a few like base black guys that did vote for Trump. There are black men, for example, in Georgia that voted for Trump because they do live in largely those areas that are affected by mass immigration. But on a whole, Hispanics, there's a very clear path towards, like, what would you call it? Hispanic whiteness. Like in the Texas GOP is a perfect example of this, by the way. Like a lot of Hispanics that want to be in the club of like middle-class white America, they are swinging towards the right. And it's not to say like the whole like, you know, Jeb Bush natural conservative thing is correct, but there will be a subsection.
It's large in part not, but once you get to a certain middle class area, that's there. But also, like in parts of the Southwest, from the Mexican-American War and the Gadsden Purchase and the rest, there's a large portion of what you would call Tejanos, or people that were there that just became part of the American territory. They've been here for, since like the 1840s, and if not prior to even America being a thing. And so it's like a lot of those guys are like, whoa, like even our way of life is being fucked with. That needs to change. And again, you're campaigning on. And also, and I think this goes back to like Carlos, who notices things or whatever on Twitter. He had said the guys that are the most recently off the boat are always the ones that want to take the ramp away from anyone else.
Yeah.
They don't want to fight with anyone. They don't want to compete with anybody else. And that's true. And I mean, also, and as Pat Casey's pointed out, and others online pointed out, Trump's record on immigration in his first term, despite being on paper friendly to pro-legal immigration, he did reduce a lot of stuff when it came to like H-1Bs and the rest. And I mean, even talking about ending birthright citizenship, which he talked about in 2018, did not accomplish. I think that it raises some interesting avenues where we're actually getting to discuss things, at least on a meta-political level, that we weren't able to before. And again, on a national security level, I mean, Musk himself is just like, I can only hire permanent residents, and I'm being sued by the DOJ over not hiring asylum seekers and being racist. And it's just like and I think I said this on one of the election night streams I was on. Things have gotten so bad that the lowest common denominator definition for what maintains a civilization is not functional anymore. Things have to seriously change in the right direction. Question is, how much are you willing to fight to get that to happen?
No, exactly. I could imagine like there's a lot of like, what's that particular base?
Like, I'm ready to be disappointed. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. As I've said before the election, and I'm going to say it after the election, I take the term from the Psalter, put not your trust not in princes and the sons of men, in whom there is no salvation, very literally. I'm not holding my expectations very high for these guys. I'm not on any hopium. I'm just saying that I am ready to be disappointed, but I know that at the very least I've bought myself time. But go on, Gio, you were saying.
But yeah, like in Canada and in America, there's a lot of people that are in like the lower working class, so like who are, I mean, I guess the academic term would be precariats, that one windfall could land them into poverty or not be, living paycheck to paycheck, working construction, or like guys who are in the military that got out, that went to that one fort, that got their Hispanic wife, and they're struggling to get by. It's like that. Those are like the core demographic of Trump supporters. Like, like in Pennsylvania, like there's a lot of like, for example, there's a lot of Yinzers in Pittsburgh that their economic prospects have been shattered in the last 50 years, or even in the last 20 years, who, in the Amish people, of course, like there's a lot of, there's a huge coalition that feels that Trump's breaking of the usual political paradigm speaks to them on a deep level. No, there are people that are very critical. There's one particular Black economist professor, economics professor. You know what I'm talking about, Prude. he goes a bit too far, but his criticisms are not entirely unfounded of potential people that can staff the Trump administration, especially when it comes to geopolitics. Now, I'm of the opinion that when it comes to the world stage, Trump probably does want peace overall. And for example, Israel was going to do whatever it wants to do anyways, even under a Kamala presidency. But hopefully maybe Trump could go to Netanyahu and say, listen, it's been a year. You've destroyed their leadership. What more are you going to do? You're going to get rid of all of them? You're going to redact all of them? Now, I know clearly that Trump would just let carte blanche that nation of the Middle East do whatever it wants. That is a fact that I'm not very comfortable with.
Congress will work his hand anyway.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm not a fan of. It's something that, but I think that if there is a possibility for Trump to truly be a peace president, that I know, for instance, I mean, there was this one video from Ukraine of these Ukrainian soldiers like shooting at and then lighting on fire this mannequin in a MAGA hat, But I mean, my basic thesis of this is something I thought about before we did the show, Prude.
Okay.
And people like Greg Johnson are not going to like this point, by the way. But I think that specifically when it comes to the far-right battalions in Ukraine, their existence is more certain under a Trump presidency than under a Democrat presidency that will give them what Ukraine, like the Kiev regime, that will basically entertain them for the next year or so. Because if Trump approaches peace talks through a non-ideological lens, then I think that Trump and J.D. Vance aren't particularly going to care about these far-right battalions in Ukraine, as long as Zelensky is willing to sit down for a peace accord with the Kremlin. However, say the war goes on under a Democrat presidency. Say the inevitable happens where Ukraine runs out of steam. But Western Ukraine is part of this like weird vassal state of NATO, okay? Do you think that the transnational progressive world order from the State Department, from a Democrat presidency, from EU bureaucrats, do you think that they're very comfortable with these far-right battalions in Ukraine? Do you think that's good optics for them? No. Okay? So I think that a non-ideological peace strategy that says, okay, I don't care about the different factions in Ukraine, as long as you can come to an agreement, those people in the Donbass, they don't want to be ruled by Kiev, and you people certainly hate them too. I think that's a better thing going forward to stop people dying by the tens of thousands every month and every year in that military zone. And whatever happens in terms of those battalions, they're not very comfortable with Zelensky signing a peace agreement. Whatever happens, who cares, right? That's a better thing than if transnational progressivism continues to treat Ukraine as a vassal state and then doing the quote-unquote de-Austrian pacification that Putin uses in his rhetoric, only for real. Because it's not very comfortable for Victoria Nuland or Kamala Harris. You know what I'm talking about? So I know that's a crazy theory and people can disagree with me on that take, but I think that if there's a settlement and whatever territory Russia claims, it's like, okay, who cares, right? But that doesn't presuppose that those far-right battalions in the Ukrainian military, that they're not going to be very comfortable with Zelensky signing a peace agreement anyways. So it's kind of up in the air, But I do know for a fact that an explicitly leftist government in Washington, they're not going to find very much favor post their usefulness in the Ukrainian far right, in the military. That's my personal thing. That when they've outlived their usefulness, the transnational progressive world order will get rid of them, for lack of a better term. You know what I mean? And then, like, so I don't know if you agree or not, Prude. I don't know.
I think it'll be. I think that the war will probably draw down. I think that it's going to come down to negotiations. How much, I don't know. This is really a only time will tell type deal.
Yeah,
but materially and logistically, I just don't think that it can last forever. You know.
No, I think my personal opinion is that the war will go on for another year or close to another year. That any action in the Ukrainian sector of foreign policy in America will not be as lightning speed as the domestic issues that Trump wants to pursue. So I think the war definitely will go on for another year. They definitely will eat through the spending packages that the lame duck Biden administration has given them. But after that, who knows? I could be wrong, though. It could be that J.D. Vance is like a Vatnik and he wants to like force Zelensky's hand or whatever. But to me, that's not realistic. I don't think J.D. Vance is like,
I don't think Vance or any of them are explicitly pro-Russian. I don't think.
No.
I don't think that they're gonna just kneel over and give Russia what they want. I mean, even if they're
wanting a peace agreement is being pro-Russia to the media, though.
Well, no, I get that. But my point is that I don't think that they're gonna just sit there and be like, okay, you can get all this, and Ukraine can be a rump state. Like, there's gonna be some sort of settlement or some kind of agreement, and again, this is all entirely dependent on who the hell is going to be the Secretary of State and who,
right,
and we have no idea who that is. I don't have a fucking clue. I just pray to God it's not a fucking John Bolton type. That's really all I'm asking for is, please God, please do not give me another, dispensationalist crazy ass neocon. Like, to see Mike Pompeo slither back after him was backing Jack Smith. I'm like, no, I know that you have an insane dispensationalist minded policy that Israel is going to bring about your idea of the eschaton. That's gotta
That's
that
terrible.
has to end.
Yeah.
So the more that goes away, the better. But it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's just going to be all about personnel and what comes from it. Because until then, I don't know.
You know what's very funny is that, and I don't really particularly care if he hears this, but you remember Big Spence had that video about why white guys should vote for Kamala Harris?
I didn't watch it, but yeah, I know that he had it out.
Well, it was basically just about Ukraine, right? But like, one of his point was that if Trump capitulates to the Kremlin, that's a sign of weakness, and that's like going. But what's crazy is that a guy that is like Richard Spencer, he's like buying into that older neocon to neoliberal consensus, when from the paradigm that Trump, I think, wants to operate from is that it really doesn't matter if like it's a sign of weakness that you're not fulfilling your ends in the proxy war. You know how many proxy wars America has ditched in the last 50 years from Vietnam onwards? I mean, you can't count them on your fingers. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
from my perspective, I think if Trump wants to play ball with other geopolitical rivals, where we get what we want, you get what you want, and you don't have to resort to funding proxy wars or economic trade wars that will eventually lead to hard wars, I think that's a much saner and more realistic foreign policy than the very destructive neocon, let's just fund a million different proxy wars against China and Russia and other BRIC nations. Like look what happened. Look what they did in Indochina with funding the Viet Minh. America went to Vietnam anyways. So that strategy is incredibly short-sighted. For supposed galaxy brain, leader of the movement, Richard Spencer, that is a very, very short-sighted foreign policy proposal that, as we have seen for the last 20 years in America with GWAT, is a very short-sighted foreign policy position. Whereas what Trump is saying that, listen, if there is no war, if people can more or less agree that like our interests, we have our interests, we understand you have your interests, then fine. You know, I personally think that things would eventually come to a head with China more realistically than even with Russia or with Iran, because China is a not peer-to-peer economic rival, but certainly getting there, right? Not to say that I want like the, you know, neocon sector that wants to pivot to China, but that's a more realistic rival to American power on the world stage than Iran or Russia. That's just a fact. So maybe Trump will do an Obama pivot to Asia. Who knows? I hope he does. I hope he doesn't want, you know, he's going to use some stupid excuse like for Taiwan or whatever. But, you know, like I say, I think that if the war can come to an end in Ukraine, if the war can come to an end in Gaza, the world would be better off for it. Europe will be better off for it. Even I listen, I understand the arguments from Ukrainian nationalists. I understand. I'm not discounting their patriotism. But when it comes to the odds, I think it's been 3 years. I don't see what's very productive. And frankly, I don't see what's productive on the end of the Kremlin either. I'm not a big fan of their strategy either. So, you know, despite what people say I'm a Vatnik or whatever, but like, it's been 3 years. I think it's senseless, needless destruction of European young men. And I think being anti-war is a better policy proposal than the old neocon. We have to show strength by supporting these proxy wars that go nowhere. Like, America's done that for 50 years. I mean, arguably you could say America's done that for 100 years, but whatever, right?
Yeah. So I mean,
yeah,
there's going to be a pivot to China, whether you like it or not.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's inevitable. But it's also out of somewhat of a necessity. I mean, like, you know, all this crypto stuff is partially motivated by, you know, the ongoing rivalry we have with China. A big chunk of, you know, our supply chains are heavily oriented in the Pacific. We still have to deal with that. The Chinese do have their own ambitions. Like, these are things that we're going to have to deal with, and it's going to come at a cost. Yeah. But I think that doing it via trade is probably going to be better, and investing in America and reshoring in the meantime is better. Because, yeah, like, there are a lot of people in the current milieu of politics in America that would love to see war, or at the very least see war as the only option as to what needs to be done. And hopefully we don't come to that, because I don't think America is ready for conflict. God knows we're not ready for conflict. But again, like, I think Trump hopefully buys a peace, you know? That's what I want more than anything. I want a peace. At least some time.
Definitely.
At least some time. Because we're not. And I mean, and again, you know, like, talk about like liberal sadism. You know, someone had basically, some lefty on Twitter had made this point saying, like, actually, really, about all this stuff, we need to just kill all these like young men in a world war again, just like we did in the past. And
there was that one that said, I hope the male loneliness crisis makes them sunset. Remember that one?
Oh, yeah.
There's a bunch of them, yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead. I just think that, like, these things are not going away, which is even more terrifying, because they're not. And those people are going to be trying to get us into war, get us into conflict, get us into all sorts of crazy shit that's going to happen. Yeah. And the more that we have to deal with that, it, again, should terrify you, because these are the people that we have to deal with and who we have to fight against, and they're not going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those are just my fears. But on top of all of this, though, Gio, I think that the biggest thing out of this is that even if Trump gets half of what he wants done out of this, like, 4-year term, that puts us in a monumentally much better position. I pray that we get some of that. I'm not holding my breath. But I think that out of all of it, you know, I just see, for us, I guess, in this side of things, the ecosystem will change. I think that some people will transition.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Some people, not to go all meta for a little bit, but I think some people will transition to more normie-friendly media content, you know. Others will go in the direction of trying to be strivers And I think that you're going to get a cycle very similar to like Richard Spencer light entryists trying to be something. Just like we saw in 2017, you know? So the cycle will repeat itself to a large extent. I think the big difference is now is that people know where the bread is buttered a little better, because there is a backing, you know? This was some.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because like this election for Trump, it didn't feel as memey, you know? It didn't feel as unexpected. Despite the fact that I had a lot of reservations that maybe he wasn't going to win. I didn't publicly post them on Maine because I didn't want to get, you know, grilled or be told I had like 6 days before I was going to forcibly be put into a crystal or whatever. But
there's a super chat that I'll get to.
Okay, well, I'm sure that'll send to that. But like, you know, I think that there is. It felt more like an establishment. And I mean this in the sense of like, oh, Trump sold out or whatever. But I mean, it feels like there was an actual established faction and not just like the basket of deplorables that got him in, you know? And so with that, I think that you will see a lot more attempts at entryism than say in 2017, because there feels like there's avenues to actually do it this time. But also that a lot of that is going to be gatekept by the worst people imaginable.
Oh, God.
Who hate your guts and that would rather hire people that have done adult film than people who've done actual work.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
I'm not wrong.
No, it's true. It's true. You know what's funny is that I was going down this rabbit hole of various prawn stars that were like a part of the alt-right. And I was... at the same time, I was reading this dossier by Mark Kozlow, who used to be a follower of Fritjof Schuon. You can find an archived art. It's called Exposing the Schuon Cult, where like Fritjof Schuon, the perennialist, was like running this like crazy X cult where he had these like weirdo antinomian beliefs and like anyways. No, it's very fascinating. It like really clicked in me how there is like this sort of like irreverent antinomian strain even in the E-right that not necessarily like, you know, Rufo hiring an ex-prawn star, but just like that there is like something like there's something there. And I think like there's sort of an opposites attract, adipolized relationship going on. And I have yet to like fully contextualize it. I may do a content minded on this stuff, but some of the things in that dossier on Fritjof Schuon was incredible. What does antinomian mean? Oh, antinomianism is essentially that you are in a. It more or less means that you're in an enlightened position to where you do not have to subscribe to the moral laws in religious traditions. Specifically biblical moral law, but also in Hinduism, there are different forms of antinomianism. And certainly Fritjof Schuon's weirdo eclectic perennialism, he also dabbled in a lot of very self-worship type of things that involved his own particular fetishes. But let's not get into too far into that. There are people definitely that are gatekeeping it that do not want the frogs in positions of power, or rather they've been tricked into bad faith positions for whatever reason. And you do have to be consciously aware of this. And so that's why I think that some blackpilling, not like overt blackpilling, but there always has to be a healthy dose of skepticism.
Oh, yeah, you need to be as skeptical as possible. Until results are delivered, I would be as skeptical as can be, and I will remain skeptical until, you know, results happen.
Yeah, but then at the same time, you also have to be realistic in those results as well.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
Like, it would be really cool for the idea of, like, RFK Jr. saying, like, yeah, we're going to send some of these unhealthy people to, like, fat camps. You know, we're going to put them on farms. No. I'm like, that would be great, but I also know that that's not going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
It'd be super cool if it did, but, you know, I'm not holding my breath.
They say that RFK Jr. isn't going to be a part of the administration, which is
sad, I've seen reports about that, and I think that RFK would probably do a lot of good by just getting the data and then doing whatever he wants with it. But
I don't know. We'll
see what happens. Like I said, we're just days after the election. The fight has already started, and the fight has been starting since, the first non-Trump candidate announced their candidacy for the 2024 Republican primary.
Yeah.
So there are battles. And like I said earlier, it's 1980. Some of us frogs are like Bob Whitaker and Sam Francis, who really want a job in changing America for the better. And some
fake sellers are like William F. Buckley. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are some guys that have a preferential hard-on for a different country that's not America that really want them to win. And that seems to be what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think that they shouldn't have cucked RFK, because I think if he just focuses on really challenging big agra and big food in America, and I know this is gonna sound crazy because of like the knee-jerk libertarianism that people have, but even if like just challenging, like bringing in at least some European style laws against certain preservatives and colorings and dyes that have been known to be carcinogenic and have known to stick to the fat cells in the human body. Like, I think that's good. I think like if he challenges those things, then those things would be very productive for people's health in America. Because like he was saying in that one video, he goes, people don't realize that health is a national security issue. He's right. Health is a national security issue in America. And, I think that I understand, you people aren't going to like me when I say this, but like obesity is like a very complex thing. Okay. There's a variety of reasons there's a variety of reasons as to why people are obese. And a lot of it does come down to your own like mood and position in life and your own mental makeup and so forth. And I don't think like as much as like forcing people to do something might not be a very productive solution, there definitely could be some forms of public health that can at least curb the severity of obesity. But that being said, obesity is I think obesity is even more complex than even drug addiction in some ways, because the ubiquity of it, the food, what's in the food, how you eat, why you eat, like there's a lot of, I don't know. I don't want to go too far into it because this is just like,
I think there's just so much of it is just due to how what we are eating is not what our parents grew up eating.
Yeah,
I mean, there is a noticeable decrease in food quality. Our terrible agricultural practices basically have told us that we are eating food and vegetables with less nutrients in them than they were 50 years ago. God knows that the age in which children have hit puberty due to what's in our systems has only gotten, has made us less healthy and has put us in a very terrible position. So it's like, he's got every right claim to make of how bad things have gotten. How much of that?
Let me do a little thought experiment.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, finish your point.
I was just going to say, I think RFK's points are totally legitimate. And I think one of the biggest depressing factors of our, partisan politics is that, all this regenerative agriculture, all of this, big pharma, food is shit type stuff, it's a tragedy that these were, Dem issues for, 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. People ate way worse than 60 years ago.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Yeah. No, but I'll give you a thought experiment. Okay. Okay, bracketing people that live in big cities that have access to things like food, even food carts, even markets, or even bracketing people that live in certain urban cities where street food exists in a different variety. Out of every major fast food chain in North America, can you name one that doesn't overtly rely on some form of a bread or some form of a packaging of bread?
Is this more of a grain thing, or are you referring more to like
carbs or grains? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just carbs.
Yeah.
No. Most restaurants are pretty carb heavy.
Yeah, like think of it. Pizza. Okay, I make an exception for pizza. Truly is a complete. Nick Fuentes is correct. Pizza is a truly complete food group. But okay, I understand pizza. Okay, pizza, very carb heavy. Bread. McDonald's, any burger chain, bread. Unless you like, you're like one of those weirdos that orders a salad bun. I mean, I order a salad bun occasionally. Or when I only stick to homemade burgers. So like I'll have a salad bun. But like any type of like Chipotle, there's some kind of grain or pita or bread roll. There's like Panera. There's there even like Asian fast food is very carb heavy, right? So out of every like major fast food slop, there's never ones that intensely focus on just protein and fats.
Yeah.
There was a great point by, I think, was it Solbrar or was it someone else that said that if America subsidized the agriculture industry instead, like subsidized the animal husbandry industry to where everybody on the food chain, on the food pyramid was eating mostly protein and fats instead of the grain industry, then America would look much different nowadays.
If I would agree with that.
Yeah. And I think like, I mean, I'm someone who struggles with carbs and breads because of my background and so forth. But I noticed when you do.
But even like the carb heavy Italians of like 70, 50 years ago.
Yeah, totally.
We're not nearly as dysgenic looking as we are today.
Exactly. And unless you're going to a restaurant and spending a pile of money, every fast food option inevitably is carb heavy. And so that's a huge problem. And the preservatives, like I understand, like if you go to McDonald's, you just stick to a Big Mac or just stick to the chicken. There is like an odd, compelling case that McDonald's in moderation isn't too bad for you, but you still have to be conscious of the fact that, yeah, McDonald's is a carb heavy food. Even if there isn't like a lot of, like there is processing in the bread and there's processing in the French fries, but as a whole, like the burgers may have preservatives. But, there's even nutritionists say it's not terrible for you. But even like a restaurant burger, like in other words, the economy of North America in terms of the food economy relies on caloric intake and carbs. And I think if someone could come in and say, maybe we subsidized for the past 70 years since the boomers, we simply subsidized the wrong agriculture and food industries, and we should give more subsidies to the right ones. Primarily meat, animal protein, maybe vegetables. I think that would be more productive than just some kind of like weirdo conspiracy. There's a soft kill weapon, or like Alex Jones type of stuff. I think if you can like make a practical case for stuff that conspiracy theorists were talking about in terms of the agriculture industry, then that would be good.
Well, I think that you can make a point about food quality, because I think someone had pointed this out in the United Kingdom, that in Britain, that food quality never really improved after post-war rationing. Like the systemic effects of America's wartime systems with food and farming and our subsidies afterwards. Not to mention our fucking obsession with corn. Good God.
Yeah, corn.
Like those things have a huge impact, and I imagine that some of these solutions are pretty rudimentary. It's just about having the will to do it,
Yeah. No, who is saying in the
now
chat?
Again, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not an ag science person. Although if I were to go back to college, I would love to study that stuff more in depth. I mean, nothing's stopping me now, but again, things I need to read up more on.
Endocrine disruption is a lot more than food. Yeah, that's true, Ralph.
Oh yeah. Genetics, environment, exposures to various chemicals, plastics, etc. But I mean, there's food is just one portion of how absolutely fucked we are.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Carbs are fine as kind of disruptors. Penultimum says, I don't know how good this take is. Historically, civilizations have had some sort of carb as their main food source. That is true. But there has been empires like the Mongols who had primarily a diet of meat and some
but also with
raspberries.
carbs, Gio, the thing is that, I mean, in America, most of our bread is not really bread.
No, it's like,
it's awful.
Stripped of nutrients.
It's awful. And, when they say, oh, it's like, it's got nutrients in it, it's like basically taking a pill and then like just putting it there with it. It's not great. And it's not healthy. I mean, I try and get bread from a bakery, not from the store. And even then, right? Like things in America are different, and I know how to make my own bread, and I've done that when I have the time. But again, it's like it's not. It's what's in our food. It's not just. It's what's in our food. It's what we touch. It's what we eat. It's how things are shipped and put together. It's insane
the amount,
how much of the system is.
It is the amount too. Yeah, I'm not gonna sit here as a fat ass and say that like fat people have a problem. Like there's no such thing as a problem with self-control. It's very obvious that a lot of fat people, obese people, have a problem with self-control. The reasons for the problems with self-control are varied and complex, of course. And sedentary lifestyles are, they're there for a reason, right? So yeah, if there could be like a way to address that as a public policy issue without like, some kind of like, I know like it's very popular on Twitter, like even, Raw Ignatius will tweet about fat camps or whatever. But like, that's a realistic policy proposal would be like, okay, how do you get people to, and I've been there, man. I've been there, it's like, it's when you start weightlifting, it's embarrassing. It's like, your numbers aren't there and you can't do it and you get tired and, but I think like if there's a way to encourage people to at least some kind of passive activity that isn't just like cardio that you're then going to get gassed up on and you're going to get gassed out as, and you're going to like totally abandon it. I think like that's, there has to be some solution here. But
this is again a product of course, like their work culture. But I mean,
work
we are so damn sedentary. But I mean, even like the physical exercise stuff that you see with like Japanese companies where you work at, where they exercise on the roof and stuff, I feel like that would go such a long way.
Yeah.
Because good God, I sit at my desk. I work I work 9 to 10 hour days, and like I have a boring office bureaucratic job, and I know that unless I don't sit and eat lunch. I don't, unless it's for work and I'm meeting with like a town or a mayor or whatever. I'm at a park that's not too far from my office, and I walk for an hour straight, and I try to not snack or anything while I'm there, because I know that like that's how the pounds stack up underneath your nose. But again, I think that it would be cool to see things like that happen. I bike places and things like that. Like you have to take the initiative yourself, because there's not a single thing here that says, it's a very much you're on your own.
Yeah. I mean, my primary exercise is I weight train at least 4 times a week. I do a bro split where I do focus on one major muscle group between a 40 to 50 to an hour period. Because I unfortunately, I'm trying to find solutions, maybe with an elliptical bike or maybe swimming, but I have problems with cardio because of my various ankle issues. But I think maybe I'll just I'll start spin bikes or whatever. But yeah, my primary focus of exercise has been weight training, has been weightlifting. So I know I understand like cardio is an issue. But so that's what I do. It's very like, it's not the quickest solution to weight loss, but of course, you do burn more fat with muscle. And so I think maybe I'll start taking up spin biking or whatever, or maybe swimming at least a few times a week, because walking for long, I did do quite a bit of walking before, night walks, but unfortunately, like I have systemic ankle and leg issues, due to my weight. So until I lose at least another 50 to 100 pounds, I think I'll probably look into the elliptical bike and so forth. So yeah, I mean, I wish, like, listen, I know, like, listen, I much prefer weightlifting to cardio. Weightlifting is amazing. It's incredible. I love it. I love the feeling. I love the feeling after you're done 50 minutes of one muscle of weightlifting. I love that feeling, you know, where you're just zoning out and the cytokines have lessened in your bloodstream. And anyways, should we get to super chats? Do you want?
Yeah, let's
okay.
do it, Gio.
Yeah, we'll do. But I think before, what do you think? They were talking about this on Night Owls. I think it was Blowdart that brought up.
I didn't hear the latest Night Owls, and I don't pay for it because I don't want to give future Moldovan citizen money.
You don't want to pay for his 12 cases of Coca-Cola he lugs up the stairs.
No.
Anyways. Yeah, so they were saying, like, do you think that a newer form of fusionism under Trump would necessarily abandon social issues the way that the neocons did? Or do you think that, like, for example, the trans issue is baked in the cake and you can't ignore it?
I think the trans issue is definitely that has to get addressed. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, the Pritzker should be in jail for starters, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But I mean, what's unfortunate is that, like, and I know that some people don't like him and some people do, but I think that Rodin's got a point where this GOP has moved significantly further to the left on a lot of issues for a little bit of anti-immigration and a little bit of anti-trans. Hope it was worth the trade. I think that that's definitely going to be a play it here. Because, I mean, even J.D. Vance on Joe Rogan, who is a Catholic in a mixed race and mixed faith marriage, don't know how that shit works. But, you know, he had said, oh, I don't care who you marry. And I'm like, do you? Because that seems like a big issue for, you know, someone like you.
He has to say it. He has to say that.
Sure. He has to say it. He has to say it. But, I mean, again, if the Republican Party is going to drop the social issues and be like the Republican Party of a fucking Shonda Rhimes political special, I'm not going to be particularly happy, but you know, that's outside my purview, I guess. But
would you take, like, a social libertarian, but, like, economically populist and also, like, banning mass immigration?
If it delivers results, I'll bite my tongue and go for it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there definitely will, unlike Canada, there definitely will always be pockets of social conservatism in America. You're not just going to, like, take away their faith and their
I know,
overnight.
But again, I'm more inclined to buy into it if I can see some actual results get produced. And like I said, I was particularly very antsy and a little worried about this election, very much so. But to see what's happened, I would hope that he can deliver something that is on those issues. Because God knows something needs to be done about immigration and everything else. And it would be super great to see that be delivered. The question's going to be just like this whole fucking Tucker Carlson, like 2018 kind of like hippie religiousness. I'm very curious where that goes, because
I was more in favor of that years ago. Yeah,
because that seems like it's not in vogue right now. You know, like, oh, nuclear energy is demonic, and it's like, okay, this administration is about to be all pro-nuclear, it sounds like, so we'll see what happens out of that. It does
change your DNA, Prude. It does change your DNA.
I'm aware of what radiation does to the body, but, like, again, Tucker Carlson seems to be, along with sort of these, like, I guess what you would call neo-trads or whatever, like the Russell Brands of the world and such. I don't know what role they're going to play when Trump himself isn't really a believer, and
there's a lot of guru grifterism. There's a lot of guruism going on,
Yes. And so it's just like, I don't know what's going to come out of that, Hopefully not too much in terms of influence, because I'd much rather see results get delivered rather than, new agey, guru-esque, grift off Christianity. Like, we've seen enough of that.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, I think there should be a place for religiosity, even if
absolutely.
You had to,
I'm not going to kick it out.
I'm not expecting
I don't want
Carlson
that.
to read Julius Evola, but it's just I don't want the Republican Party being shaped towards like a Richard Hanania direction.
No, I don't think it will either. Yeah, in part, just because we were talking about earlier, it's not going to, because of the young guys. The youthful energy, both from Gen X, but not that Gen X is youthful, but I mean the millennials and Zoomers that went for Trump, especially white guys, they're all religious. The young people that we know from Hillsdale and the guys that are potentially going to have spots in these administrations, those guys are all religious, of various sorts of Protestantism, Catholicism, and Orthodoxy. Like, they're not going away. Right. And I don't think that even Trump himself is going to be completely anti-religion, period. I don't see that happening. My point is, though,
he's not going to be like a secular vitalist anytime soon.
No, he's not. And I think that he's given the religion aspect to it. I mean, I'm sorry, the guy should be dead. His life has been spared. And I think that you can definitely chalk that up to a providential aspect of it. Yeah. And I don't think that that's a cringe thing to say, because, again, turned his head at the right moment, at the right time, to not be dead. And if that's not an act of God, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I mean, I want younger people to have a solid basis in faith, but I think that do you remember when Russell Brand was praying with Jordan Peterson?
Yes.
That was that was in that documentary series, that lecture series back in the 70s, or was it the 80s, by Joseph Campbell. I think it was called World Spirit, where he was telling people all these hippies that are trying to go to India or the Amazon basin. He's like, you gotta realize that there's just as much in India, the equivalent of grifters and charlatans and gurus that are the equivalent of big tent, big mega church, Protestant televangelist grifters. So you have to be cautious, but only because it has this esoteric layer of New Ageism attached to it.
Well, and it's foreign. Yeah. There's an exoticist Orientalism to it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's not resembling anything that you would know or know of in your canon of work or history or whatever. And I mean, again, that's just how things are going to, I think, be. And especially because the internet means that all that stuff is way more accessible than before. And of course, people want to grift and make their money being the guy on said issue. I mean, that's always going to be there. I guess my concern is that how much of an influence that's going to play on policy. I don't think it's going to play as big of a role in policy. How big of a role it's going to play in the culture war? Oh, honey, that's staying for a long time. That's not going away anytime soon. Not when Tucker Carlson's doing essentially what I could only describe as big tent political revival with a dash of his, his sort of born again. I'm looking into Christianity for the first time seriously. And again, between him and Russell Brand, and then the ongoing thing with Peterson about, do you believe in something? It's not going away anytime soon. And like I said earlier, that culture war fight is already happening. We see this in evangelical circles. We have a lot of our mutuals that are trying to keep degenerate post-war theology out of their churches, and with good reason. And that fight is going to be there. The idea of the masculine leftist, he probably will be a churchgoer. And of course, that's only going to, renew old fights between religious people on the right. And of course, say they're more atheist, vitalist Friends. But again, that was never going to go away to begin with. So yeah, here we are.
we're sort of like reviving the old ancient debates, for example, between Neoplatonists and more explicit pagans, or Neoplatonists and Orthodox Christianity that then later integrated some forms of Platonism, and like, Hellenism versus Christianity. I saw Bat posting that the other day, arguing with Sam Bunce. Like, I don't know, we're just sort of like, we've been debating this stuff for thousands of years in some cases. You know what I mean? Like, at least hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. It's crazy. But I think like schizo posters might come back in a big way. I think theory cells eventually might come back like they did in 2017. Hopefully. I have this interview that might be published soon with Rachel Haywire in her Substack about the art right thing. That's I think is going to be interesting. No, but I do think that there is sort of an energy there. You can't deny it. But at the same time, if America does become more secular, but there still is an active right wing, what would that look like? I mean, I'm not a big fan of secularization, but I know that like maybe a lot of the alternatives aren't going to be in terms of like the Spenglerian second religiousness, because that's what Russell Brand is. Like, that's Spenglerian second religiousness. But what does the left equivalent of that look like? Will they go back to New Ageism? Will they just stick towards?
I think you saw this at the
new
DNC.
Atheist stuff, or yeah.
I think you saw it at the DNC. They're gonna the leftists will try and claim that they are the real Christians.
Yeah. That'll be a big step too. I don't think that there will go back to New Ageism,
because you have to fight with what's there. You have to fight where your enemy is, and for the left, your enemy is Christian.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the fight that they're going to have to work with. And again, they'll do everything they have been doing, like they have after the war, and to make it as liberal and to say that Jesus says trans rights. That's going to continue.
There was this pastor that had this TikTok that said all Trump supporters are going to hell now.
Even though God is the only person who can condemn someone to hell, but yeah.
BAP isn't trying to be something. Well, yeah.
Well, you can condemn yourself, but I mean, again, only God's going to tell you where you go at that dread throne of judgment.
I think it's like, it is kind of like a very shallow skin suiting, but at the same time, it will probably work with a lot of people.
Oh yeah,
it will probably, you know what I mean? Like, unfortunately,
absolutely.
Like, yeah, it's crazy. We've seen a number of new worm hatchers. I don't know. We've seen a number of new Christianities a number of times. Very recently, too, the 70s full of it. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, the 70s was full of that. Yeah. Like, there was the whole televangelism. There was, like, different, like, because what was Tillich's called? Systematic theology? Or, Paul Tillich?
A little bit. But I mean, also, like, you're going to have... Yeah. I don't know if we're ever going to return to, like, the bakers. I don't see that happening.
No.
But I mean, yes, I think, and I mean, also, if you find truth, and that's what you earnestly seek, you will find it. And you will find it by the attendance of services and with fellowship and the actual call that comes from the Lord that tells you to be holy and to love because he loved you first. Are you going to find that in every place you go or every church you go to? No, because we know, unfortunately, that that's not preached everywhere. And the challenges that why men go to Catholicism or other high church traditions or any of these conservative denominations is because they want to be challenged. They want to be told that they are capable of what their forefathers had done or to be capable of what Christ calls them to do. Now, is that going to happen everywhere? We know it won't, because we've already seen the fall of religion anyway here in this country in so many places. Do I have hope that can come back? Yes, because as G.K. Chesterton said, our God is someone who knows his way out of a grave. Hopefully that comes to be, but again, there will be a lot of people grifting off of it, as it tends to be all the time. There will be a lot of Simon Maguses out there. There will be a lot of people trying to make their money. Thankfully, we know that they lose in the end.
although that requires us to be vigilant and to be, as Paul writes, good soldiers in Christ, and to be militant about it. But until then, until that, takes up, these battles are going to happen. And I do pray for my, our friends in all these sort of Protestant circles that are trying to take out, post-war liberalism as the dominant theology of their particular denomination or church. I would love to see that die, because that's not biblical, it's not scriptural, and it not pertains to the teachings of the early church at all whatsoever. Hopefully it ends. Hopefully it dies. But that's a battle that, may God grant us victory in that front.
Yeah. Yeah. But well, Worm Hatcher pointed out, there was a number in the 70s and the 80s. There was the Mythopoetic Men's Movement of Iron John with Robert Bly, which I think Peterson is like the revival of. Back to the Landers, which of course it's very popular. Wholesome Chungus Communitarian Homesteading, Jesus Freak Movement. Russell Brand is basically the extension of the Jesus Freak Movement. All this stuff is coming back. Like,
even the I noticed this the other day because I was out in the small sort of local downtown where I live. Everyone's dressed like it's 1976.
Yeah, man.
Like the bell-bottom jeans are back in popularity. Like the 70s facial hairstyle is back.
It's like the early 90s was the 60s revival.
Like we are really back into a time frame that's really just we're really it's the 1970s again, and I think that's definitely true.
My old man was a child of the 70s. He was a later boomer. So yeah.
So I think that that's we're back in the 70s, and we've got instead of Dick Nixon, we have a different King Richard. We have King Donald. We'll see what happens there. I'm not holding my breath, but we'll see.
Yeah.
The 70s were a dark, dreary, ugly, gritty time of bombings and revolutionary movements. If we're lucky, ours will be right-wing instead of communist, but we'll see what happens.
We'll have the revolutionary right of the Jonathan Bowden when he was.
We'll have cultured thugs, baby. Cultured thugs.
Cultured thugs. Yeah, exactly. Oh man. I think Cultured Thug published a book with Imperium Press recently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is he too optical to? Why are you asking these questions in public? I don't know. We could get Roden on the show, maybe.
Maybe.
Too optical?
We'll talk after.
We'll talk after. I think Roden's a good guy. He's not too optical, but no, but yeah. So I think that we could get a cultured thug movement. You never know, right? Like you never know where this whole rightist futurist thing is going. It's just the possibilities are there. But I think that we have to look out for the new William F. Buckley, and we have to do better this time. Because what's odd about the 70s is that the 70s was a dour, gritty, and dirt. Like everything in the 70s looked dirty. It looked gritty and disgusting. But the 70s was a great time, both of music and of intellectualism. Because when you really think about a lot of the both New Age books and a lot of the New Left tomes, a lot of them they weren't written in the 60s. They were written in the 70s. The 70s is when the boomers went to academia. The 70s was when the New Left really did get its legs. And this is the time where, people like Michel Foucault were publishing and so forth. So I think a lot of people went inward in the 70s in a very weird way because the outer reality was getting more cynical and disgusting and brutal. And of course,
the 70s was a very meta-political moment, a very meta moment in politics, period.
Even in the far right, the 70s had very interesting thinkers as well. So there was definitely people metapolitically returning because, and of course, violent crime exponentially increased during the 70s.
Oh yeah, the serial killers, the spree killings, the murders. Yeah. It was a dangerous,
gang violence, mafia, gang violence. Yeah, inner city crime, drugs. Yeah, I mean, so hopefully we can avoid those excesses. That would be great. Geo, we already have that. It's called the Daily Wire and the Babylon Bee Crew. Yeah. Like,
he's right.
I think he's right, man. Yeah, Ben Shapiro is sort of like our new William F. Buckley. No, I think Ben Shapiro is our new Irving Kristol, but like, I don't know who's that guy that runs the Babylon Bee. Not
Seth
Joe Barry.
Dillon and Joel
Seth
Barry.
Dillon. Yeah. Oh, Joel Barry does.
No, well, he's part of it. I don't know if he runs it,
okay.
but Seth Dillon, Joel Barry, and all that. Just I heckin' hate these righties.
It's funny how like Tim Dillon is sort of like the millennial version of Bill Hicks in some ways.
Yeah.
No, actually Sam Hyde is probably our millennial version of Bill Hicks. But yeah, we kind of do live in a 70s moment, maybe like Nixon's in the White House. I don't know, man. Like, it's just, I hope that, I desperately hope that the neo-Confucianists this time around do not win. And the neo-Confucianists this time around will look something like the Babylon Bee meets Richard Hanania, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. Because the world of like elite human capital, it's like, oh, well, the right kind of immigrants can come in and, don't pay attention to any social issues. And we're like a secular blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's,
well, yeah, but I mean, I would love to let the right people in. I would like people from Europe to come in. That'd be really nice.
True. No, but of course they mean like Indians.
Oh, I know. They mean non-whites. They always mean non-whites.
Yeah, Hanani is not exactly anti-immigration, by the way.
Well, he's not, a native himself.
Yeah. So you know what's so despicable? What's so despicable in Hanania is that, okay, I understand, like, if you are like you're not like that big into Middle Eastern stuff, but he really is like a traitor to his own people by being like vehemently pro-Israel. That's like, bro, you're a Palestinian. Those people are getting slaughtered. Like, I don't know, man. Like, just doesn't like a little part of you feel bad? Do you have a soul, Richard Hanania? Oh, why?
You know the answer to that.
Questions? You know the answer. Do you have a soul, Richard Hanania? Don't you feel, okay? Even if you don't agree with the Middle Eastern theocracies, you agree that October 7th was terrible. Whatever. Okay, fine. But don't you have like a little bit of compassion for your own people? Even if your own people are like terrorists or whatever, like people that don't even if your own people are bug men, to not have some kind of deference for them is terrible, in my opinion. But anyways, whatever. Let's get to the super chat. It's been 3 hours. So shall we do the entropy? Entropy links there. Let's do the entropy link first. Whoa, this has been a great show. We delivered.
I hope so.
Election, hopefully the post-election stream. So the eudaimonia clip he shared of Vaush said, he goes, yeah, that's why working class people voted for Trump, because they're stupid, they're ignorant, and they're susceptible to propaganda. It's like, that's his direct quote. So that's where Vaush stands. But can you really be surprised?
I will give Vaush credit for cleaning up.
Yeah.
And losing some weight. That's about all I can say. That's nice.
He looks like that older picture of Vaush before the glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, speaking of people that don't have souls, so this is from Entropy, and oh my God, look at the name. I
can't see the name on Entropy, Gio.
Of this person. Oh no, I'll see it. The name, Gio's Gowan Indicrystal. Gio's Gowan. What is Gowan Indicrystal? Is that a form of crystal?
I don't know. I don't know how it's spelled.
Yeah, Gio's Gowan Indicrystal. I don't see it. Probably is anyways, it's just for me. Gio's Gowan Indicrystal for $3.
Going Indicrystal.
Gio's go! Oh my god! Gio's going into the crystal! Oh my god! That's a ghost style troll. Oh, by the way, did you see a ghost? He was like freaking out. He's ending True Capitalist Radio because he hates Trump now. So, you piece of crap! Cans not wave. Gio's going into crystal. You bitches were wrong. Abortion was not on the ball and chain for Trump. 10,000 years in the crystals for Kirkpatrick and Gio, and it's a bunch of lightning bolts and gems. Apologize for blackpilling on abortion. If it's gonna save me from 10,000 years, me and James Kirkpatrick, I mean, do we have to share a crystal? Like, I wouldn't mind that. I mean, you know, we talk a lot, me and James Kirkpatrick. That would be cool. But to avoid the 10,000 year crystal, Gio going into crystal, I apologize for blackpilling on the abortion crystal. But I mean abortion issue. Sorry, abortion issue. Oh my god, I can't believe you people follow my advice to use your names to troll me. That's incredible. Oh boy. Okay, Sergeant Hold for $10. Never imagined the richest man in the world retweeting multiple dark MAGA schizo edits, some getting 40 and 70 million views. So there you go.
Yeah, it's a great time to be a meme edit maker.
Oh my god.
It's a great time to be cool.
So thank you for the $10, my dear friend. Much appreciated. Sam153 for $10. Agree on buying 4 years of time to build. I hope to make the best of them and you gents as well. Any post-hoc fortification happening where they're still counting, like in Arizona?
I think there's some sketchy shit in Nevada and Arizona for the Senate races, and again, they lost the presidency, but the Senate races are now really what's going to matter because you know a 52 majority is nothing compared to maybe like a 54. So we'll see what happens. Yeah,
we'll see. Critical save. Took you a minute, Gio. That was like when Ghost freaked out when he's like, I am communist. Oh, you piece of crap. Those were the good days before Ghost became a bitter old man who has the politics of the Lincoln Project, unfortunately. So anyways, thank you, Sam153. Good friend, good contributor. And I don't know if I can read this name. Harry Sisson Baka, you know that thing that goes on in Afghanistan, Groiper.
Oh.
For $10.
That's hilarious.
That's incredible.
That's super funny.
It comes from that Navy SEAL.
That Robert.
Yeah,
God, it's so funny. I'm not going to lie. I think that's
so
hilarious.
Yeah.
I know that's completely beyond the pale and inappropriate, but it is funny.
I could easily imagine that Navy SEAL dominating Harry Sisson.
I'll let you keep the mental image to yourself.
Well, you know what I mean. So anyways.
Hey, kid, that's great. Next time, keep it to yourself.
No, but Harry Sisson, that thing in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
$10 says that. Thank you, Harry Sisson Groiper. Every non-white ethnic group in America wants the privilege of being the sole underclass. Yes, that's very true. Because with that comes a variety of unique state projects and claims to victimhood.
Well, I mean, that's why you see this inter-conflict with the black vote as well.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, we may not be the only like Gibbs receiver here, and that's not cool.
Yeah. And plus, like, we don't like, we don't like the Tariq Nasheed. Yeah, we don't like Africans either. Yeah. But that's a great point, though. Thank you, Harry Sisson Groiper. And Charlie Mackey, our good friend Charlie Mackey, for $25. Oh, USD. Evening, gentlemen. Hope you both are doing well. Thank you, Charlie Mackey.
Thanks, Charlie.
Always great to see Charlie Mackey. And now we go to the YouTube super chats, and whoa, there's some great ones here. Holy crap! Sundine 565 for $50, but it's $50 Canadian. So, but anyways, yeah, $50 nevertheless. Thank you.
$25 American.
Oh my God! He beat 2 women. He's not going to jail.
So true.
He's like OJ. He did it and got away with it. Oh my God, that's terrible. Well, Bill Clinton got away with it too. So, that's funny. That's funny. For Kane, thank you so much for the $50. Sundine, is that a reference to Matt Sundine? I hope so. If it's in Canadian dollars, it probably is a reference to Matt Sundine. So, yeah. Anyways, Hugo Gloss for Mexican pesos, $50. Mexican peso, which is about $5 Canadian. I'm sad to announce Priscilla La Gorda Loca Trevino didn't get a spot on the Loretto City Council. Her write-in camping only took her to 12% of the vote. Who is that? Priscilla?
I don't
Trevino?
know.
Let me look this up. Trevino.
In Laredo?
Yeah. Where is that?
I guess I'm not aware of what happened there.
In Loretto City.
It's so far from me, I just don't know what's happening.
Loretto City. Priscilla Trevino for City Council District 4. This is some esoteric stuff.
This is some real local stuff.
Oh my God, she's got a shaved head. And she's some kind of, I don't know.
Like a rad femme or like a skinhead?
I think she's a rad femme.
Oh, well, if she lost,
it's kind of
good.
There's some kind of, yeah, I mean, if Hugo Gloss can drop the deep lore.
Yeah, if we can get some context, that'd be great.
There's like a Facebook page with only like 500 people. That's crazy. But anyways, thank you, Hugo Gloss. I always love when people have their own like deep lore that they give to DA. It's funny. I like it. If people want to send more super chats with like local politics,
chat is always the you are the third chair, and you let us know about all sorts of weird shit we don't know about. So we're always thankful.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to super chat us, me or Prude, with local politics deep lore, we're
all for it. We will read it. We will investigate.
We're fighting in the city council in like Priscilla in Prescott, Arizona. Why did I think of Prescott, Arizona? I think it's because I used to listen to a Michael Savage radio station on TuneIn from Prescott, Arizona. Anyways, Sean Schaefer on Entropy for $5. People talking mad smack about white women are all of a sudden real quiet right now. That's very true.
Well, there are conservative white women, and then there are your usual shit-lipped white women.
Yeah. But anyways, but thank you, Sean Schaefer, a good friend. And for $1.99 bucker, £1.99, that's like $3 Canadian. Goth _ bureaucrat. Don't you want to be unburdened by what has been? That's good.
Boy, have we ever been unburdened by what has been.
Yeah. Oh, but thank you so much for the £1.99, which is I believe $3 Canadian. No, I think it's exactly $2 Canadian. I recently had to send some money to the UK, and I had to pay. It's like double that of the Canadian dollar. So and here we go. Namu Zed for $10 Canadian. Because I'm in Montreal, my American clients assume I'm uber progressive and keep venting to me about the election. One said, "You're lucky you have Trudeau." That's funny. There is quite a bit of right wingers in Montreal. There's quite a bit of identitarians there. But like French nationalism in Quebec tends to be more secular, focuses on language issues and so forth, you know. But thank you so much to our good friend Namuzed. And that's funny though, like American like boomer libs, they're like, well, you know, you're glad you have Trudeau. Like that's very funny. That's very funny.
That's funny.
Anyway, yeah. And our good friend Bill Phosphorus Knight for $10. Neolibs tried to guide white girl to be like a black woman with all of the baby daddies, girl bosses, and yes, queens. Or worse, it's an embryonic stage. It's in its embryonic stage. Well, there is like in the 2010s, I think even Default talked about this. In the 2010s, there was like the baddie thing where it kind of was like more like African-American fashion styles that like both like white women and MENA women were like taking up. Like the Kardashians, they're kind of like MENAs because they're a minion. So there definitely is something to it. Yeah.
Definitely something to it.
But hopefully this election backfired. Apart from like those, you know, like those libtards on TikTok that are shaving their heads. Like apart from them, you know, a lot of white women voted for Trump. So anyways, what are they gonna do? Shave their heads? Like, I mean, I had this thread about the gender war thing. I don't like talking about it, but like, if you want to voluntarily like not date men and like not wear makeup and not have relations that can get you pregnant, it's like, you know, like you do you, girl. Like, it's just, I don't particularly care. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just a stupid thing. It's a stupid culture war bauble that as soon as these, you know, women, you know, they're probably going to forget about in a few months. So, hopefully, I mean, I personally, I believe in the Henry Kissinger line that like total, like radical feminist lesbianism could never occur because there's like what did he say? Like the gender war can never be stable because there's too much fraternizing with the enemy.
Yes, something like that.
Yeah. So, some of these women, they're not like all ugly either. Some like, I do think like, yes, there's a lot of leftist women who are ugly, but there's also a lot of leftist women who aren't necessarily ugly, but like in another time, in another culture, they kind of would be like housewives and they would have families, and it's just a shame, you know?
Yes, it is a shame.
Yeah. I think some of the gloating over it is kind of mean too, you know, call me wholesome Jungus. But anyways, you know, it's like these people are having a mental health crisis. It's very bad. And our good friend Lou Templar for $5, Obama's legacy is destroyed. So there you go. That's pretty good.
That is a big sigh of relief.
And oh my God, I can't. Oh boy, this is a good one. I have another entropy one, but this is a good one. I can't pass this up. See me rolling for $5. You cracker honkies are people I would happily give money to. Thank you. See me rolling. I'm assuming you're a black man.
We appreciate it, my brother. Well, hopefully you will donate more in the future.
Yeah, we appreciate all our donations. So thank you very much, See Me Rolling. And over on Entropy for $5 by Gio hasn't made an art stream since December. Is that Seneca or is that no? That's Owen Zaleski. Gio hasn't made an art stream since December 2nd, 7th, 2020. Hello, gents. Owen Zaleski here. I hope you are all well. I am glad Gio liked my little meme in the beginning of the chat. I don't know, Entropy lets you change your name. I learned you can change your name on Entropy. We'll have fun with this. Gio, please make an art stream. Have a great night. God bless. Thank you, Owen Zaleski. Or in other words, Gio hasn't made an art stream since December 2nd, 7th, 2020. 27th, 2020. Wow, that was a long time ago. So maybe I should get back to art streams. But anyways, so thank you very much, Owen Zaleski, good friend, good patron of ours. And Robert Weisenfeld, I wasn't gonna Trude, I wasn't gonna do the thing. I promise, I wasn't gonna do the thing.
I don't know what you were talking about.
You know the old TRS meme?
Oh, I do, but that wasn't.
We're not gonna.
I don't think about that. You know, when someone gives me money,
I don't think about the meme.
I don't think about TRS memes, man. I'm not that terminally online. I hate to be that guy.
I know. I'm sorry. Robert Weisenfeld for $1.99. What province do you trade Kamala to? BC or Quebec? Oh, that's right. Didn't she grow up in Quebec too?
Yeah. Right.
I don't know.
She went to she studied in Vancouver, didn't she?
Yeah, I think she went to University of British Columbia. Yeah, UBC. So
that answers that question.
She could go back. She could go to Vancouver. She could go Vancouver.
She could be with her fellow Indians.
Quebec has too much nice culture, and yeah, I wouldn't want to, Yeah, she could go with her fellow Indians. Did you see the riots in Vancouver?
I did. Absolutely insane.
Oh my god, they were like overwhelming the police and everything. That's terrible. That's just terrible.
Well, that's when they have strength in numbers.
Kamala would feel right at home though, so it would be, Anyways, I should say that because she doesn't really strike me as even like an Indian woman. Like she doesn't. Is she like even a Hindu? She's not a Hindu or.
I think her mom was. I think her mom
was a Sikh.
Yeah. Hindu, I think.
Oh, her mom was a Hindu. Yeah. I don't know, man. She doesn't seem that particularly religious either. Like it's just
no.
I don't know.
She married a secular Jewish guy.
Yeah.
Of course not. Only 10 years ago, too, did she get married. Like, she's a striver.
Yeah. It's funny, though, because I don't, really hate her as much as I hated Obama or Biden. It's just, she's, like, a silly, lush striver woman. It's just, I kind of, I shouldn't say this, but, in some ways I feel bad because, she was thrusted into this position and, she's probably going to be politically relevant from going forward. So
I don't know how relevant she'll be.
No. I mean,
that's the good thing.
She reached the top with being vice president. That's pretty damn high for a woman striver in America. That's the peak of the mountain.
You got there president. Again as a literal diversity hire,
Yeah.
You got the job because Joe Biden promised Jim Clyburn, my VP will be a black woman or a woman of color. Please, oh please, oh please, endorse me in the South Carolina Democratic primary.
Yeah. But put it this way, if she wanted to I don't know, make one of her salads and if I was having dinner with Kamala, I wouldn't say no.
I will say this. Kamala Harris, she had that interview a while back where she said she wishes that she could run a restaurant. Kamala Harris, I hope you run your restaurant and never bother me again in the lever for power. You will be given that. You will be given that mercy.
She would be spared from the crystals if she promises to run a very good restaurant. So I don't know, man. I know something about her just doesn't make me hate her. I don't know what it is. It's just even Hillary Clinton.
You are a more wholesome chungus than I thought you were.
No, but Hillary Clinton, there was something hateable there because, of course, she's intelligent and
she uses people.
Her power for evil. Yeah, she killed people. So, it's just, So something about Kamala, she seems like a babe in the woods sort of deal. I hope she goes back to her life and forgets about politics and just runs a restaurant. She can run a fusion Indian soul food restaurant. That'd be good. The New York Times could write a piece about her too, when the Indian soul food restaurant. So, anyways, I think they exist though. They exist in California. Did you know that?
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Yeah, Indian soul food. Yeah. Anyways, Robert Weisenfeld again. Indian soul food. Robert Weisenfeld for $4.99, almost $5. Going to college in the mid 2000s. My mind cannot get over Dick Cheney ribbed Redemption arc to the lips. I know why, but somehow my brain cannot believe it. Thank you, Robert Weisenfeld. My brain cannot yeah, you're right. Like that's staggering.
Also campaigning with Liz Cheney, like country over party. And it's just like, okay, in the midst of a geopolitical conflict that America's inextricably tied to. And, oh, by the way, Dearborn, Michigan, it was either Donald Trump or Jill Stein. Unfucking believable.
Yeah, terrible. Like there was that tweet by Loki Julianus. Like, imagine being Jon Stewart, knowing your fans love Dick Cheney now. Like it's like I couldn't imagine a better hell for Jon Stewart, Johnny Leibowitz. Anyways, and here we go from how do you say that? Preservatism for $50. Thank you so much, my friend. We've already been in the Trump era for 8 years, and God willing, there will be 4 more. Well, preservatism is correct. I think that we have more or less been in a constant. I mean, apart from like a few years after he lost, or quote unquote lost, quote unquote, where like he sort of disappeared in 2019. We have been living in the Trump era since he came down the elevator. Like, really, when you think about it, even through Biden years, like it's maybe clownvid, maybe like that grabbed attention away from it. There was a few years.
Isn't it crazy to think that as of next year in 2015, it will be 10 years of this? And that again, I have a buddy who's like, he's going to retire in the next few years from the military. And he gets to have Trump. Is the commander in chief. The guy gets to sign off on his retirement papers. Like, even when my dad retired, it was when Trump was on the retirement papers. And my dad was like, I'm so glad it's Trump and not like Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton. And so it's like, we've been in the Trump era, like you said, for 8 years. And we get eight more of it. And we have a political realignment in part due to him. The Trumpian era of politics, like, you're in it. You're living in it.
Is it true, like, the president, when you retire from the military, they sign off on your thing?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure it's a printed signature. It's not hand signed.
Yeah, they don't physically sign.
There is a signature of the president on your retirement papers.
Man, that's crazy. Like, the American military, like how, like, the president is
the commander in chief. It is his constitutional authority.
He's a 6-star general or 5-star general, or
he's essentially in charge.
Yeah. What's the highest 5-star general?
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess
we haven't had that many of them.
Yeah. How many you've had? Like MacArthur.
I would have to look that up. I couldn't tell you.
Eisenhower. I'm sure in the Civil War you had one, right? Was it Ulysses Grant one?
I don't know if they ever got to 5 at that point in time. I don't know. This is something I'd have to look up.
It's like American military history would. Yeah.
It's not the kind of autistic history that I got in me.
Yeah. Parker the person for $1.99. Prude is healthy, but selected the Janus light. Does he mean jaundice light or Janus light?
Oh, the lighting. Yeah, I bought a new camera because when I was interviewing with John King Spezio for his book, my old webcam died. So I just plugged this puppy in earlier this week, and I was recording my episode of Stalin's War this week, to which I was using the damn webcam mic and not my good microphone. So I have to re-record that. But yeah, the lighting is totally... Actually, you know what? In fairness to the lighting in this camera, it is actually pretty yellow in this room. I will need to change out some lights or get my old ring light tripod back up. But yeah, I am healthy. I should probably make that clear in the comments when I'm done. I will get that looked at, but I did buy a higher quality webcam this time, so I guess that's something I'll have to deal with.
Yeah.
Gotta fix the lighting.
Yeah. So anyway, I didn't think the lighting was bad, but it is kind of yellow, but and
that's okay. I'll get a better light.
Yeah. Both Phosphorus Night for another $2. Does Ukraine even matter because of Nord Stream? Well, yeah. I mean, obviously Ukraine still matters. I think Nord Stream really was the literal severing point of America's relationship with Europe as not an equal footing, but as respective partners versus Europe as one giant total transnational progressivism vassal state. I think Nord Stream was a very explosively symbolic, to use a pun, explosively symbolic relationship of what the true intention of the American elite political class has towards Europe. But Ukraine still definitely does matter. I mean, does it really matter in terms of the lives of ordinary Americans? No. It matters much more to the lives of ordinary Europeans. Does it matter even to the ordinary lives of, even British people? But it is immensely important to the future of continental Europe, or rather, I should say Western Europe, in relation to Eastern Europe, and Europe as a whole in relation to America and the BRIC nations. So to me, I think Ukraine is still immensely important. Not as important as maybe a lot of other issues in America, obviously, but from the perspective of geopolitics as a whole, that's important. The war in Gaza is important because, frankly, Israel goading Iran is something that I strongly, strongly hope Trump addresses. I know Trump is a Zionist. I know that, a lot of people that he's going to have to select from are
going to have that prior.
Yeah, or basic Israel firsters. So I'm not blind to that. I know some people in my comments, even when I did that not TikTok, maybe I'll go on TikTok one day, probably not. When I did the YouTube short about Trump, I know people were talking about that. But listen, I'm not blind to the fact that Trump is pro-Israel. But it is what it is. I can only hope that Trump finds it in himself to say that Israel provoking the Western world into another war in the Middle East is one big fat mistake, So hopefully, yeah. But anyways, let's not end on a dour note, Armiac discourse for $10. Holy crap! What a super.
I think that's Aramaic discourse.
Aramaic discourse. Oh, that's the language, Aramaic. Yeah, that's what Christ spoke. Heard a Muslim and progressive argue in my favorite coffee shop this morning. Why did I say tea? That was like a Freudian slip. Arguing my favorite coffee shop this morning. Muslims said Trump was punishing the left for their wickedness. Welcome to California. Can you imagine, like, a fierce-bearded Wahhabi Muslim saying that Trump is divine punishment and libtards for their wickedness? That's amazing. That's really wholesome, Chungus. Like, did you see that tweet by Nightmare Vision? Isn't it crazy that all of these like multiracial people are essentially voting for Trump, but like in favor of white supremacy?
Just to punish white libtards.
It's like Indian people that say that the British Raj should come back and control India again.
Well, yeah, like 64% of Native Americans voted for Trump.
That's incredible. I love that, man. I love it. You know, Russell Means was based. Russell Mead. He was pretty based. He went on Alex Jones before he died.
Really?
He was like he was like after that. What was it called in the 70s? Was it called Wounded Knee or no? Wounded Knee was the Indian War. What was that thing in the 70s? The protest.
I don't recall. I don't know.
Maybe the chat knows. The chat would know. But what was it called in the 70s, guys, with Russell Means? What was it called? You guys will figure it out in the chat. He became like a strange, like, libertarian. And then like he went on Alex Jones talking about like the health crisis and reservations in America. So yeah, man, like a lot of indigenous people are based. It's just that like like having known a few Indigenous people here in Canada, that are like working class guys. Some of them are pretty based. Like the ones that are in academia, those are the ones that are pushing for example, this recent attempt to censor quote unquote residential school denialism, which is totally ridiculous.
Is that into law now?
No, but
okay, so you can still say something about that.
Yes, it's a fringe bill by the NDP, but unfortunately, like, yeah, the American Indian movement, yeah, there you go. Thank you, Parker the person. So yeah, Russell Means became pretty based, and a lot of Indigenous people in America, I noticed they do sway Republican. The Wounded Knee incident, yeah. So, but in Canada, like it's different because a lot of them still are libtards, but there's a lot of like working class, like native, like Indigenous people that probably will vote for the Conservatives. I know there was some that backed Harper. It's just unfortunate that like the ones that go to academia, the ones that's become like lawyers, like they're a bunch of libtards. But it is, yeah. It's very funny when Trump did that thing about, they have a person here in Washington. They call her Pocahontas. Then he like reaches, that's so funny for some reason. He puts his hand on the guy's shoulder, but you know what? I like you. It's like a native chief. This guy, he mentioned Elizabeth Warren. He's like, but you know what? I like you. That's like, I don't know why, man. That makes my heart melt. Like the whole like wholesome Chungus racism is like really, like that famous Orc Brand tweet. It's just something about it. It's just very funny. Where it's like you got like Muslims, Indigenous people, Hispanics, even like some black guys that are all like, you know what? We hate liberals, we hate libtards. We hate like white libtards, black libtards, Latino libtards. We just hate them. That's my only principle, is that I hate liberalism. There you go.
So true. So true.
So true. Robert Weisenfeld for another $1.99. Axios Fitness is excellent. Well, I know a guy in Axios Fitness approached us for a sponsorship that we didn't get back to him. Maybe we should. I don't know, Prue. Would you be up for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we could definitely do. So if you're listening to this, I think what's his name?
Why don't you just DM him back?
Coleman. I'm gonna DM him back. Yeah. We definitely. Well, we should like work out a sponsorship, but it's like we're on two different channels, so we'll see what happens. And Parker the person again for another $1.89. Thank you very much, Parker the person. And in Quartzy 7 for 10 Canadian dollars for my favorite frogs in No Mala November. No Mala November. That's funny. No Mala November. That's funny. No, yeah. Anyways, thank you very much, Quartzy 7. And Constanza, Constanza, like Costanza, but Constanza for PLN 50. Is that the Zloty? Or no? Yeah, I think that's the Zloty. PLN. Yeah, that's a Polish Zloty. Since it's a week of hope and good fortune, have a couple of bucks from Poland, Gio. And remember, Poles are watching. Oh my God, I have to curb my pro-Russian slant because we surprisingly do have a lot of fans in Poland apparently. So I gotta curb the Vatnik posting. So thank you very much, Constanza. We all love our Polish listeners, and we wish the best for Poland. And I know with the Tusk guy, things are kind of tough, but we wish for the best. Anyways, so thank you very much. And Seasider for $5. Fritz the Cat captured the 70s well. Favorite Ralph Bakshi movie? I quite like Fritz the Cat. I
haven't seen a lot of Ralph Bakshi. I have a weird affection for Wizards.
Yeah. Wizards is pretty good. But if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick Fritz the Cat. Heavy Traffic was all right too. But
I'd have to rewatch Fitz the Cat because it's been so long.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's based. It really is like a based version of the intention of what like of what like Robert Crumb intended Fritz the Cat to be, like a hippie like lib, but then like the Ralph Bakshi version's much more cynical. It actually has like quite a bit of reactionary moments to it. And so John Carter for $5, and I don't know if I should read this one because it might get us into trouble with a certain faction of the right. Elite human capital somehow always turns out to be Alexander. Oh my god. Woo! That's holy crap. As much as I don't want heat, like, yeah, that's funny. That's funny. It's not funny what he did, but like that's funny. That's a funny tweet. Oh my god. Thank you, John Carter, our good friend John Carter. And finally, Seasider for $2. By the way, Prude, how was Army of the Doomstar?
Army of the what?
What's Army of the Doomstar?
Army of the Doom? I don't. Army. Oh, Metal. Oh, I haven't seen it.
Oh, I didn't see it either.
I didn't know that
they had one.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that they made a movie for that one. So
I didn't know
great.
They made a Metalocalypse movie.
I didn't know that either. I know that the Venture Brothers got a movie last year. I didn't know that they got one. So I guess that might be something I have to watch. Sorry. I didn't know. That's news to me. That's exciting. I didn't know that they got a movie.
I kind of skipped over the opera thing that was like 22 minutes long, like the finale. I love Metalocalypse. So apparently they got all the guys from, apart from like mainstream actors like Malcolm McDowell, voice actors, they got all the guys from Anthrax. They got Mark Hamill. You
can't avoid him in the voice acting world, unfortunately.
Yeah, true. Oh, they got Amy Lee. They got King Diamond. How they get King Diamond? And then they got Kirk Hammett from Metallica. I'm not the biggest fan of Kirk Hammett. But they got Amy Lee. People said Amy Lee got fat, but like Amy Lee still looks pretty, still looks good. I wish she would have stayed with that guy from Seether, but that was like, they were like sort of like the post nu metal, like post grunge power couple for a while there in like 2006. It was Amy Lee and the guy from Seether. I forget his name. This is old head millennial deep lore, but were you a fan of Seether or Evanescence, Brood? Or?
I was an Evanescence fan when I was younger. There
you go. How is Hammond an unbelievable guitarist? I don't like. It's all wah pedal. I don't like. I think Dave Mustaine. Never mind. I'm not going to get into the whole Megadeth versus Metallica thing. I mean, I like Metallica. I like quite a bit of some stuff of Metallica, but I mean, if I had to choose, I'm obviously more of a Megadeth fan. But I just like Kirk Hammett. I don't know, man. Like he seems like a one-trick pony, like just I hate to say it. Like I hate to go there, but you're all just wah pedal. I shouldn't say that there are some songs where Kirk Hammett does shine. Like, for example, Wherever I May Roam is some of his best solo work ever. But like all the other stuff, it's like, I don't know, man. Shut up, Langdon Industries. Shut up. It's just, I like, listen, I have a preference for Megadeth. I think that Dave Mustaine, he's had a lot of depth when it comes to lead guitarists between like a lot of the older guys, even like some of the newer guys like Chris Broderick, Glenn Drover. It's just he had the ability to pick and choose really great guitarists, and I think it's an unfair comparison. So anyways, and finally, Perk the Person for $1.99. this is why, Prude, you changed your thing. What's your carry pie C?
He's saying, what is your carry piece? And that depends on where I'm going and what I'm doing. So I'm going to leave that. Also, it's just common courtesy to not really talk about what I own or carry.
Yeah.
Maybe one of these days I'll talk about it, but today's not that day because I'm very tired and this is nearly a 4-hour stream. It just depends. Sometimes it is I do carry on occasion. I have a small compact 380 that I quite like. I carry that almost everywhere because it's just compact to carry around. And if not, I sometimes have a 38 special revolver that I like to use. But of course, I also have a Glock, and I can't go wrong with that. You can't go wrong with the Glock, and you know how to use it. And I go to the range. Like an actual range twice a month, and then I'm usually with my dad out shooting, usually every weekend.
Yeah, I think Glocks get unfairly maligned. I mean, they are the most reliable, or one of the most reliable handguns. So, yeah, I can't buy or sell any handgun in Canada
yet
because of Trudeau.
Yet,
no, I think he'd implement the freeze.
No, when you become an
American, Polyev could definitely get rid of the
American
Geo. Oh, or that too, yeah.
When we trade Kamala Harris for Gio Pinocchetti.
There you go.
I will take you, when you come to America the next time, Gio, I'm not even kidding, I will take you to a range.
Yeah,
man, I will treat you right.
Yeah. I used to do some skeet shooting with the old man, but I've never been to a range.
Perfect. You will come. We will arrange a trip during. It'll be great. Well, it'll be great when dove season comes around. It'll be great. It'll be great.
Oh man, that'd be great. Yeah. When he said carry pie, never mind. I was thinking of something else. But anyways, that commercial was crazy. The Democrat commercial.
Oh.
Yeah.
Don't you just love it when the only commercials that allow white people to be in them are for not procreating?
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, is that too on the nose?
I saw that someone made with the guy's face. Someone made your local Republican Congressman Groyper. That's very funny. Very funny. I think it was my friend on Twitter, Smelly Groyper. We had this exchange where it's what if he actually did as a comedy bit, or what if Trump actually did it? I'm sorry, you smoked a joint in public. You're going to the salt mines for 20 years. I got elected. I'm your local Republican congressman. That'd be funny. Anyways, this has been a great stream. We thank our good friend Benjamin Boyce for coming on. And the post-election stream, you've people been extra generous. We love and appreciate all of our friends and super chatters and supporters. All of our links and all of Benjamin's links are down below to support us. And next week will probably be on Friday again, unfortunately. But eventually we'll get back to our Tuesday schedule. So, yeah, thank you all. It's been over almost 4 hours, and it's getting late for us. So thank you so much. As we always say, God bless. Goodbye. Too sweet. We'll see you next week on Prude's channel. So,
see you, gents.
Yeah. All right.